Hello, everybody. Everybody, hello. Welcome to the one and only Copy That. Because this is live, we don't have Noah to come in with the fancy editing to do like the title screen and everything. So I'll do it. With the Copy That. Anyway,
Wow, what a rap. Oh my
thank
God.
you. So, welcome to the stream. This one's going to be a little different. It's going to be a blend of copy critique, but that's going to come more towards the end. Today, instead, we're going to talk a little bit about editorial and the interaction and relationship between editorial and fulfillment and copy and basically what people get when they pay for what is on offer in a piece of financial copy. And one of the things that we are going to go over is not really the funnel per se, but what a sales letter even sells to begin with, what those things look like, because I have a feeling you watching have never purchased a financial sales letter offer. And then I'm going to go over a few examples of not only how that looks, but also like how to do it well. And then I'm going to segue from there into something that I did for patrons of the patreon.com/the Copy That Show variety, where I went on to Discord and I basically announced that I'm looking to offload some of my work. Just for context, I am a financial copywriter, but I'm also a publisher and the managing director of a few different businesses. And in one of those businesses, I am actually the primary editor, where I'm doing stock analysis, writing newsletters, writing editorial, and shipping it for publication to people like you, but people who pay money. So And so one of the things that I'm trying to do, because I have actually not had very much time writing copy in the last year, really, I'm looking to offload some of my editorial responsibilities onto someone. And one step beyond that, and of course I'm looking to pay them as well. And one step beyond that, I'm actually looking for someone who can do that on a regular or repeating basis. So I'd love to pay them on an ongoing basis. And if they are good and learn the basics from this, I'm hoping that they can use the skills that they learn writing these sort of low impact, not super important editorial blurbs, and then take that into more difficult, more complex topics. So we are going to be talking a little bit about copy today, but the primary focus is going to be on editorial, or what is often called content. Sometimes called content marketing or content copy, doesn't really matter. Good copy and good content should basically be indistinguishable from each other. So Luke is joining me today because he has actually done this before. He's been paid to do the very things that we are going to be talking about.
Even by you, Sean.
Yeah. And so why don't we get started? Because what I'm hoping to give for you today is like a clear view of the landscape of where editorial and content fits into what we do as sales copywriters. And I want to make sure that you get a sense of like what people are actually buying when they buy a direct response long form financial copy offer, because that is going to give you more insight and more information than I would say about 95% of freelancers out there who have never actually purchased one of the products that they want to write for, which is counterintuitive to me. But, you know, people's is people's. They're not buildings. They're not tomatoes. It's singing, it's dancing, it's love. Nice little Muppets reference there. So before we get started, Luke, do you have anything that you would like to say about this wonderful journey that we're about to go on?
Honestly, I think that was a really great intro. And now I hope to contribute. I've done financial copywriting, also like editorial mostly. And maybe I can share some insights, how it is also to work with you, because it sounds like you're offering people an opportunity. And just give general copywriting advice, because I'm also a copywriter. Even though I'm not specialized in financial copy, let me share my thoughts too.
Lovely. So again, we'll get to the actual submissions. I asked everybody for a sample of one of these particular doodads or instances, and I'll explain more about what I was looking for later on in the stream. But in the meantime, one thing that I want to do before we get started and before we progress, I have a horrible tendency to get sidetracked by questions. So we have a simple rule, which is if you have a question that you would like to have answered on the stream, you are going to have to make it worth my time. After all, I am trying to save up for that Lambo money, possibly a Yugo, definitely a Chevy. And so use the super thanks or super like feature in YouTube if you have a question, a pressing question that you would like to have answered on this stream. Otherwise, we will not really have much time for Q&A. So let's get started with where customers actually tend to start. And that is here. This is a sales letter. It is one that I've marked up. It is one for a guru by the name of James Altucher, podcaster, author, former hedge fund manager, former computer programmer, very smart dude, very sweet dude. I really enjoyed working with him and working in the business that housed his products. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so that people can actually see it. You know, go figure. But imagine you are a person who is scrolling Yahoo Finance or Facebook or, you know, any place where you are going to see display ads or PPC ads. And basically, you click on that ad and say it says something intriguing about, like, you know, how jobs are going to end in America or what have you. And you click on, and there's either a VSL or an HTML page that has this. And this is, as you can see, 36 pages long. It is a lot of copy because this is a long form direct response sales letter. And as you can see, there is a bunch of copy about who James Altucher is, what James Altucher is all about, and James Altucher's predictions and prognostications for what is going to happen to jobs in America. This sales letter in particular is about the impact of innovation and AI. Go figure, we've been talking a lot about ChatGPT recently. And how it's basically going to eradicate a huge number of the quote-unquote bullshit jobs that proliferate the American economy. And so, interesting things to note about this sales letter. The headline is structured very similarly to a problem solution headline, but I would not call this a problem solution sales letter. In fact, I would call this a prediction or prognostication sales letter because if you actually read the copy, it is making a prediction about something that is going to happen in the future. And so just because a headline presents a problem and has a solution baked within it, that doesn't mean it's a problem solution type of sales letter. So you actually have to like dig into the copy and kind of understand the idea in order to understand the type of lead that it is. Now, moving on. If you read this and you like what is said and what is said about James's ideas and James's predictions, and you think that this is both going to be a threat you want to protect yourself and your family from and an opportunity that you want to capitalize on, you are going to make your way through. And notice how, as we're going down, we're seeing a lot of stuff. We're seeing, pages in the book, bullets, teasers, things that you're going to see. This is also a book promo. I believe Mike Palmer wrote this, but I'm not 100% positive. And Mike Palmer, as you know, is the GOAT. So there's also a bunch of teasers for what one can expect in some of the bonus premia. One of the things that you'll see as you scroll down is actually, like, you'll see that what is on offer here is a book, and specifically a new book called The Choose Yourself Guide to Wealth, which is sort of a follow-up to James's best-selling book, Choose Yourself. And as you go through and get into the offer section, you see it goes, first he reveals the book and what you can expect to find in the book and how it can help you, yada, 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 some intriguing bits. Then you get down and there's this mention. This is usually the second thing. This is the actual product that's being sold. Now, it's being spun in the sales letter as this sort of like add-on to the book. But really, the book is an add-on to the newsletter. The goal is to get people to buy the newsletter. The book is just there to hook people, to like attract buyers, and to get them interested enough to listen to a pitch about a newsletter. And there's a very simple reason for doing that. Nobody actually wants to buy a newsletter. They don't wake up in the morning and go, God, bless America, do I want a newsletter right now? So you have to hook people through other ways. The way that this sales letter does it is first with the idea, the prospect
Mhm.
of a future where salaried employees perhaps are not as valued as they were in the past. So you start there, and then you go deeper and you go deeper and deeper. And that's when you transition to a discussion about the book and what's actually on offer. That's these bullets here. And then you shift from the discussion of what's on offer to the actual discussion of the product. Now, usually when people get here, what you want people to sort of be feeling at this point is, man, I really want that book. And man, I also get this additional, like, ongoing continuity, this product that keeps going and keeps giving me more information about this overall idea, this theme that has been covered in the sales letter. And that is the benefit here. Now, when people are feeling that, and if they get this far into a sales letter, you better hope that your copy was good enough that they're feeling that. They are still on the fence. They need more reasons to buy. And that's when you actually start introducing bonuses, other aspects of the offer that make it attractive and alluring. For example, this additional gift number 1, the 5 best retirement jobs in America. That is what we call either a premium or a bonus, etc., etc. This is not a lead magnet. Just notice that in chat. So the other thing, too, you'll get information about that bonus, and then you'll get another additional gift. This is also a bonus or a premium free gift. There are a lot of names for it. There's no consistency between them. This is the New Secrets of Publishing a Successful Book in America and the Ultimate Guide to Self-Publishing Your Bestseller. And then we go through that bonus and describe it. And then, as a third, remember, rule of threes, additional gift, you get the original best-selling book, Choose Yourself. So, what has happened here? We've gotten a big idea, a prognostication about the nature of work in America. We've gotten a book that can presumably help somebody like tap into the opportunities and threats that will present themselves as a result of this big idea. You've got a newsletter that offers ongoing support and ongoing help vis-a-vis that idea. Then you have 3 bonus items that are there to either basically help overcome objections people might still have to that initial idea. Like, what if I want to work from home? What if I want to write with my toes in the sand? Well, we got a bonus for that. That's what the bonuses are for. They're to help people not to help overcome just to help overcome their objections, but also to push people over the fence and to make this feel like an indisputably good, no-brainer kind of offer. I'm not speaking very well or clearly today. Now,
You're doing fine.
I said before that this is not a lead magnet because the goal here is not to get leads. The goal here is to get paid subscribers to the newsletter. So now once we introduce all the things in the bonus stack, usually what you'll see in a sales letter is a recap of what you get. Number 1, obviously, as I said before, that first bonus, the primary thing that the sales letter is trying to pitch, the book, Choose Yourself Guide to Wealth. Number 1. Now, here's a smart thing that the copywriter did, which you can do too. This is a great tactic and one that you should steal. Not only are they going to send you a hardback copy of the book, that's number 1, they are also going to immediately send you a digital copy. Now, a lesser copywriter might combine that into one bonus, but a smarter copywriter will do what's done here, split it into 2. Because what is the objection one has to buying a hard copy book? Oh, I gotta wait now? That sucks butt. Well, you don't have to suck butt when number 2 is here. So there you go. Here you go. So that's a small little optimization and tactic that you should definitely incorporate in your offers, especially if you're selling any sort of physical or printed matter. Now, the third thing is, again, also, as I said, the newsletter. This is the actual product that's being sold. And when it's tabulated, at the end of the day in terms of like what has sold, it's always going to be under the actual newsletter because that's the primary product. The advantage of having newsletters as primary products is because, well, what if you have a new idea? Well, you can cover it in the newsletter, and then a new sales letter can be written, and then a new set of bonuses and other premia can be attached to that idea in that sales letter. And bingo bango, you're selling the same product, but it looks completely different because it has an entirely different bonus stack. That is the sort of like meat and potatoes of financial copy and marketing. That's generally how it's done, and that's how it's been optimized, and that's the sort of control, how should I say, structure that has existed for over a decade at this point, like more than a decade. Anyway, so that's the newsletter. Now, before I press on, I want to actually show you what this stuff looks like. Like, when you buy this, like, what do you actually get? So number one and number two, this is what you get. This is the book. This is a digital copy of the Choose Yourself Guide to Wealth. It's the full thing, 279 pages. It's like printed matter. You got a whole bunch of things. When you bought this offer, you would have gotten this book. It's a full book teaching people how to build wealth, specifically the way James Altucher did or would recommend. Valuable if you liked the character, the credibility of the sales letter. So then we get into number three, new monthly new monthly newsletter, James Altucher report. This is what that looks like. Boom. And if you're going to say, oh, this newsletter, it looks kind of like a magazine. Yeah. All the tactics and strategies used to market newsletters now are really just variations and an evolution of what was used to market magazines in the past. This is what it looks like. When you buy a financial product, a financial newsletter, this is kind of what it looks like when you get it. This is what shows up in your inbox, or if it's a printed newsletter, what shows up in the mail. And so here you can see, this is a PDF version. You get articles from James, you get books, ideas, topics. It's hefty. You get a lot of information. This is the Altucher report and one other one that I think I might have closed out of it. So too bad. You get a lot of different information, books that one of the editors would recommend for accomplishing a particular thing. You get information about James's podcast. So that serves a little marketing role too, driving people who buy to the podcast and driving people who are on the podcast to the newsletter. It's, harmonious, good marketing. Got information. There's James with the person he interviewed. There's question and answer corner, et cetera, et cetera. This newsletter has had a few different iterations and innovations and evolutions over the time. At one point, there was a financial segment that was written by an analyst and James as well. And it would recommend stocks and things like that. Bitcoin as well during the height of the crypto craze. Which height? Who knows? I'm sure there will be another one at some point in the future. So that's one example of the Altucher report. And as you can see, this is another example. It's a monthly newsletter, or it was. And there's a lot of great information in here, like a ton. So this is actually called a contributor's letter. That is not standard industry-wide terminology, because you have various contributors who are also writing articles and contributing to the newsletter. That can be a managing editor, it can be a special guest, it can be somebody who is trying to promote something, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why you do that is, well, one, so that you have more content in the newsletter so it feels more valuable, but also two, so that the things that you're actually talking about in the newsletter also serve to have a marketing function. People are getting information that they can go off and venture off and buy. And so this is what a actual financial newsletter or business operation newsletter, a general newsletter, looks like. And so there are various contributors letters. There's also single guru letters. I'll show you an example of that in the future. This is how you get rich. I love it. Yeah, exactly. So the titling of editorial, I hope you'll notice, is also compelling as well. Like, it's very incumbent upon either a guru, an editor, or a managing editor to write their titles like copy, because you want people to read your editorial. As I mentioned before, not only is there an engagement function, like we want people to keep reading so that they buy more stuff in the future, but also the newsletters themselves serve a marketing function unto themselves. For example, this piece by Craig Stanland. Okay, so that is what the Altucher Report newsletter actually looks like. When somebody buys this, that's what they get. Now, here's the thing, and this is where financial gets a little ethically murky, I'm going to say. A lot of people, especially newer copywriters, less experienced copywriters, or copywriters without a strong moral code, they'll promise a bunch of stuff. And the things that they'll promise is like how to get rich as, a crypto trader or whatever. There's been a crackdown on that in recent years. I'm very grateful for that, because the promise that you're making people, ultimately, it should be initially in the idea, it should be related to the idea. This idea is going to cause a new slew of millionaires, or it's going to cause this damage to the economy that you can protect yourself from, et cetera, et cetera. Some weaker copywriters will promise 1,000, 2,000, 3,000% gains in 28 minutes. The thing that you need to promise in your copy when you're selling a newsletter, especially one at this time that did not recommend stocks, was, I promise you'll never read anything like this before. Our country is going through massive changes, and if you want to stay ahead of these changes and exploit the opportunities before everyone else, this is the most important publication to read every single month. Notice how that promise still feels strong, still feels compelling, but it is not hyperbolic. It is not insane. It's not promising to cure diabetes. It's not kooky. And so if you want to write good copy and good financial copy as well, you need to learn how to separate the opportunity from what you're promising, because the worst thing that can happen to you as a financial copywriter, since you're mainly compensated on royalties of net sales, is you want to be able to reduce refunds. And if people go, hey, I thought this stock would make me a millionaire in 28 minutes. Well, what do you say to that person? Here's your money back. But if you promise that they're going to get a newsletter, well, hey, you've just basically, they're going to come back and say, hey, wait, I thought I was going to get a newsletter. And you could be like, yeah, you're getting it. There you go.
These promises are also easier to make when your newsletter is good. Like, the better ideas you've got in your newsletter, the more engaging it is, and the better research that you do as a company or as a copywriter to make just great newsletters, the better you can do this in your promo also. So
absolutely. So bonus or item recap thing number 4, or the fourth thing in the stack, if you want to call it that, special report, 5 best retirement jobs in America. Now, often in financial, editorial, and marketing, you will get special reports and premia made just to add on to an offer, just to, again, help people go over the edge. So this is what that looks like. This is an actual special report, the special report that is on offer in that particular sales letter. 5 best retirement jobs in America.
How many pages is this one?
This one is 7. So it's not very long. Become an Airbnb management company, become a book publisher. It's just ideas for earning extra income. Now, the cool thing about reports like this is, say a couple of years go by and the landscape changes. Well, you can run the same piece of copy, but switch out what you recommend in the special bonus report. You can't do that if, for example, the book or the newsletter covers this particular idea. But if you want that idea and you want it in a special report, well, you have much more versatility there. And I'll show you an example of exactly what I mean. So this special report, the ultimate guide to self-publishing your best-selling book. Now, this is that bonus report. This is it. This is the original one that was hooked onto the sales letter that I've been showing you. This one is 179 pages. It's a full book, gussied up as a special report. As you can see, let me zoom in so that you can actually see. Hopefully. Gosh. Yeah. There you go. you have the whole thing: building a platform, questions, testimonials, how to create a professionally designed book, etc., why you should self-publish. This is the whole kit and caboodle. Basically, a whole course on self-publishing a book that was sold with this offer. Again, 179 pages. And so now, at a certain point, a copywriter decided, I actually think that this would be better with a different title. And so they reran either this or another sales letter. And to make it feel new, they took the same report, the same book, and released it as this: the bestseller blueprint: how to write and sell the next Harry Potter. It is the same report, possibly with a few updates along the way. This one's 164 pages, but as you can see, there's a little intro. Looks like it skipped the table of contents. But as you can see, it's basically the same thing. It's the exact same report / book about writing books. So the cool thing about bonus stacks and crafting offers that have this is that they're modular. Like, say an offer, like you want to try to improve it or test something else or optimize it, you can just switch out the bonus stack. Or conversely, if you want to see if one thing leads to better retention than another, you just have a bonus stack or a bonus report with the exact same title, but with different contents, and see which one lands better. So these are all things that you can do. Number 6, my previous best-selling book, Choose Yourself, and hey presto, this is a copy of that book. So as you can see, this is a good offer stack. Like, if you like James's ideas and you go, oh, hey, well, Choose Yourself Guide to Wealth, that's on sale at Amazon for $29, but I can get all of this stuff for $49. That's where the no-brainer aspect of this offer comes in. Because
So
why
how
would
many
you?
books do you get here? I think you get like $3 for
You,
what, $49?
you get 2 books, a year subscription to a monthly newsletter. You get a bonus report, and you get basically another book-length report. So 3 books, a newsletter, and a bonus report. But there are 6 because, as I said before, they split up that initial book into printed and digital.
But like, on the premise of like wanting this, I think this is a really good deal, right? Like, if you are intrigued by the first part of the promotion, which is this big idea, this trend that's going on, and this prediction that, James makes, if you're hooked and if you're intrigued and if you want to know more and you actually want to have these things, I think it's a great deal. Like, $49, you get a ton, and you get all these monthly issues. Once you can start understanding why, like, this might be like an appetizing deal, you can like start to understand to someone saying I'm on the sale. Nice. So like, once you can put yourself in the shoes of one of the buyers, and once you can see why this might be attractive or not, you actually can get better as a writer, because now you can see what's wrong and what's appetizing about it and what isn't. I was not trying to sell you here. It's just trying to show you, if you put yourself in the shoes of the prospect, it's going to be easier to see whether these offers actually land or not.
Exactly. And by the way, you can't buy this offer anymore. We call them promotions or offers because typically an offer has a sort of like natural arc or natural life cycle. And some are shorter than others. Some are bound to a specific deadline. Some are not. This is a more evergreen style of promo. But this sales letter is from 2017. And eventually it stopped working so good. The people who wanted, like, who would be receptive to this offer, they bought it. And now you have to go hunting for new ideas. You're still selling the same product, but you're going to change the offer stack depending upon the idea. That's where big ideas actually come in.
Like, this promo just rides on the wave of the big idea. Like, that's it. It's basically what's behind the big idea is a trend or a topic that people really care about, right? Which is, am I going to lose my job because of, like, new technology, right? Like, if you're scared about that, and if that's a very popular trend, then basically you can build a promotion around that. Well, if you have a book that talks about that particular trend. And that's what they're doing here. So at some point, obviously, this promo deprecates and is no longer effective, because guess what? Either the trend disappeared, or people don't care anymore, or there's another trend which is more important.
Yeah. I actually think that with the proliferation of ChatGPT, that
Same.
a new updated version of this promo would probably do very well. And the
Yeah,
way that you would do
it's a good
that
idea.
is you would take the original promo, you basically write the same thing, but you change the headline. You change the headline, you change the lead up until about boom, like right around there, maybe right around there. New facts, new figures, new details related to what people are experiencing in that moment. And
That could be a cool promo for DIY wealth.
we'll get there. We'll get there. Um, God, yes, I am a shill, but I am a shill for my own stuff. Therefore, ethical. Um, uh, this stream, by the way, is sponsored by not Agora or the Altitude Report. It is sponsored by viewers like you, specifically patrons. Now, I wanted to show you guys another example of how editorial is delivered and how editorial differs from like sales copy.
Can we
Now,
first like break down a little bit why this is important and like why people would want to try to learn editorial copy? Because like basically like if you grasp the idea that like you've got all these promotions that keep coming out and like you've got all these copywriters who keep trying to sell newsletters, someone's got to write those books, right? Someone's got to write those reports. Someone's going to write the actual issues of the newsletters. Like that's literally a job and it needs to be fulfilled. If you can be the person who can fill that gap, then you've got a lot of work in this market of financial copywriting.
that's true. And in fact, because of my experience and because I know not only the copy side, but also like the idea side and also the analysis side, there was a point where for a couple of years, I was actually contributing a column, not to this newsletter, ALR, the Altitude Report, but to a different newsletter. And I was getting paid $2,500 per 1,000-word column. Do the math on that. That's about $2.50 per word. And
Nice.
now I'm writing about 5 newsletters for a different business, and I'm getting paid uh, a few orders of magnitude above that. And so, just in terms of sheer money, there is money in financial editorial and knowing how to write it. There is also money in being able to straddle that fence of copy and editorial, because if you can write editorial that's driven by good ideas, well, you can write copy that sells your own editorial based on your ideas or the gurus or what have you. And so learning editorial is actually a pretty good entry point into writing financial copy. And it's really good for copywriters to learn that. A good example of that would be Jack Ford. Jack Ford, he famously co-wrote Great Leads with Michael Masterson. He was an editor as well as a copywriter for a number of years. Oh God, what was the name of his newsletter? Anyway, he wrote a newsletter, a financial newsletter based on technology stocks in the late 90s for several years. And he wrote both copy and the editorial that sold the newsletter. And then eventually, like, most newsletters, most products, again, they also have their natural like lifespan. They don't last forever. And now all of a sudden, well, he just switched over to like copy and selling information about copy. Not that anyone should ever do that. Hmm. Mm. Anywho, so there are distinct advantages to learning the editorial side of this business as well. Not only are there jobs, people need things to sell, but also it gives you enough insight that you can actually learn to sell. And learning how to write well on the editorial side definitely has transference over to copy. Now, is editorial also an advertorial? The answer to that is no. And here's the reason why. In advertorial, the goal is to disguise a piece of editorial, a piece of content, like as copy, or vice versa, disguise a piece of copy as editorial. The goal is to get somebody to click onto something, usually a sales letter. Hold on. I wonder if this is going to glitch out. No. Here, I have this. Boom. So this is a lift, a marketing lift. It's not advertorial per se, but you can have advertorial that you drive traffic to via PPC ad or a paid per click ad, like Google ads or what have you. This is an email that advertises a particular sales letter. Now, it's fairly short. This is called a lift. You can have lifts that are editorial lifts and lifts that are marketing lifts or sales lifts. This is a sales lift. How do I know? Because when you click it, it takes you to a sales page. Hey, bingo bango. And what you see is a very similarly structured thing. This is another sales letter for a different product that's actually running right now. You can see this opportunity expires forever in a day. Deadlines, they work. And as you can see, if we scroll all the way down, boom, 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 all this work is published in a newsletter called Stansberry Venture Technology. Hey, it's almost as though if you look at and analyze sales copy, you'll notice patterns. And that's why you should read sales copy. And so, again, once you look at all this stuff, you start to notice that there's very similar structures, very similar things. Now, I showed you this, which is a sales lift. Here, I'm going to try to zoom in on this so that you can actually see it. Hopefully everybody can read that now. This is not an editorial lift. This is a marketing lift. Serves basically the same function as advertorial, which is to like wet somebody's whistle or to get somebody excited to click on to the next thing, which is the sales copy itself. Now, editorial, like it's more like branding, I guess it would be, because you're going for more indirect response. You're trying to get people excited about ideas and things so that they're more receptive to future back-end offers, that is monetization efforts. More expensive products that are basically like the same idea, but deeper, faster, bigger, closer to the guru, more risky, etc. This is an editorial lift. Sorry, I'm gonna. Can I do this?
Like editorial would be more trust building and more about developing the relationship between the reader and the guru, right? Or at least the credibility of the guru.
Yeah, and also fulfilling on the things that you promise in your sales copy.
Yeah.
You can't sell something if you aren't going to fulfill on your promises and what you sell. That's how you go to copy jail, to hang out with the ghost of Gary Halbert. So notice how this starts off very similarly to this. The marketing lift and the editorial lift are very similar. And the reason for that is, again, because good editorial and good copy are often indistinguishable. Now, if you scroll down this, you'll notice that there aren't as many links, that it's more informative, but it's also still teasing people because you want people to click on and read the actual issue. Notice that the CTA here is very different from the CTA. Get all the details right here. Critical that you read this piece of research right away, yada, yada. It's more about intrigue, whereas this is about intrigue, but also to get you to read the actual issue. Now, I'm going to show you what this actual issue looks like, and hopefully I don't get in trouble with Stansberry Research as a result. But this is the actual issue. You click that button, and it takes you to this page. Now, as you can see, and this is something that Stansberry does so well, the whole Stansberry constellation of companies. They do this, I think, better than any other financial publishing business. They just care about their editorial so much, and as a result, they are one of the most profitable, consistently profitable financial publishing businesses in the world. They have some of the highest lifetime values in terms of customers. They have some of the highest retention rates of any business. And it's because they care about their editorial and like put an effort into it and actually like recommend good stuff. Like, go figure that one should actually do that. Anywho, as you can see, you got the title, same title as the actual email lift. Hey, hey. And then as you scroll through in this issue, you got bullet points. Learn your bullets. You got a portfolio snapshot. Hey, actual trades, recommendations, things like that. I'm going to try to, again, zoom in so that people can actually see stuff. Again, hopefully this doesn't get me into trouble with my friends at Stansberry. And as you can see, what you're paying for when you buy an offer is the research. Now, can you sell financial advice via a sales letter? The answer is no. Or if you can, the copy has to be so very different. And the reason for that is because in the US, there is what is called a publisher's exemption. There are a few criteria that I'm not going to get into here, but you can only sell financial information if something fulfills those criteria. And for that reason, you can actually recommend stocks and talk about stuff, but you can sort of hand wave away the fact that this is not technically financial advice and thus does not need to be regulated by the SEC, which is a big deal. This is instead regulated by the FTC. Now, the FTC will say, if you're trying to sell this in a way that seems like you're selling financial advice, we are going to sue the pants off of you. So what you have to say in your sales letters is not if you want access to my recommendations, you have to say, or get access to this crazy stock that's going to make you a millionaire. You have to say things like, if you want access to my research, what we're selling is the research. And as you can see from the actual product itself, there's a lot of effort and research that goes into one of these recommendations. There's a lot. This ain't mamby-pamby stuff. This is real deal stuff. So yeah, and all of this exists to sell people not only on the idea, like what's going on now, why it's important to pay attention to what's going on now, how this affects your portfolio, how this affects the stock market, and importantly, how to profit from it. And this is all due diligence kind of stuff before getting to the final actual recommendation. Now, a good newsletter typically does not just have recommendations. There is a previous issue of this that is just a recommendation, but good monthly newsletters will have often a variety of content. For example, these are called briefs. I actually got my start. I was in the proofing pool at Agora, and I was just bored most of the day. And so there was a newsletter called Creating Wealth. And in my off time, I just started writing briefs for it, without invitation, and just started sending it to the managing editor, somebody that worked down the hall from me. And that's how I got noticed. And that's how I got promoted in 2 months to an assistant managing editor, got promoted to a managing editor 2 months after that, had my salary bumped up from $30K to $80K within a year. So, learning this stuff was definitely advantageous to my career. And what you can tell is that to have a compelling brief, when you actually read this stuff, you have to be able to communicate an idea clearly, have it be in context, have it be succinct, have it be enticing and exciting for people to click. And if you can do all of that, well, you've successfully written a good brief. And as you can see, this is 100 words long. This is 150 to 200 words long, et cetera, et cetera. Variety of content, all related to ideas that are either covered in this newsletter or related to this newsletter. Now, good thing about Dr. Eifrig's newsletters is it's called the Health and Wealth Report. And so he'll every month have an article that's about stocks or giving an opportunity, and then also one about actually improving your health. He's a legit doctor who quit medicine to become a hedge fund manager, like Michael Burry. So that's actually pretty common. That's a weird thing. Anyway, and then there's a full article. Again, another full piece of content, another full piece of editorial entirely about this opportunity, this health-related opportunity. So again, newsletter content, it can be pretty good. And you get a lot of stuff, a lot of information when you buy one of these offers, ideally. Hopefully it's a good one. Now, if you go up, there's also the download PDF version of this. And if you, there are certain things that you can do, and certain publication companies, some do this and some don't, that they'll actually send a physical copy of a newsletter to your actual mailing address. This is what that looks like. And they just fold this up into an envelope and send it your way. It's the exact same thing, except as a PDF, and then they print this out and they send it to you. It's way less designed than the Altitude report, but it still is very good. This is another example of the same newsletter, but a simpler, more stripped down version of it. Now, before I'm actually getting into talking about what we're going to talk about today, do I have any questions about this in particular? Again, if you want off-topic questions that you want me to answer, hit that super thanks button. Help Luke escape the tyranny of the Netherlands. He has a little piggy bank in the background there that you can't really see, and he's just taking old silver Dutch stuivers and slipping them in there. The Dutch East India Company coins, and this is going to get me out of here finally. And
I think that was the best pitch ever.
yeah, and I personally am trying to save up for hair implants, and so if you want to see Sean with hair, definitely hit those super thanks.
Oh my God, that's a milestone.
But for real, any questions that you might have about what I've talked about so far, the interaction between fulfillment and editorial and copy. And I know that there's a lot.
I've got something interesting. Like when I was doing editorial stuff for you, it's like one thing that I immediately noticed is that writing is obviously, you need to be good at writing. You need to be able to construct sentences that are engaging, that are easy to read, and all that. But that's not enough. Like, you need to have a knack for research. Like, this is all just doing so much research. I also think it's a really great way to get really good at research. Like, I would say financial copywriters are some of the best researchers in the copywriting space that are out there, because like you said at the start of the stream, so many people don't purchase the products that they're actually selling. Meanwhile, these guys, they've got to dig through reports, they got to read like all kinds of documents from different sources just to be able to make maybe one like this one 7-page report, right? Like one 7-page issue. Think that's definitely a very important skill. What do you think?
Let me put it this way. One of the things that you can learn from editorial is how to do that copy research. More than anything else, the success of a financial sales letter is really dependent upon research. Like you said, Luke, all of the best financial copywriters excel at research. Somebody once called me one of the best living financial copywriters working today. I would put myself definitely in the top 100, maybe the top 50, like on a braggadocious day. But I don't know if I know a better researcher than May. Like, that's not bragging. Like, I just know where to find stuff and how to find stuff better than anybody else I've ever met. And that helps me a lot. Again, I write editorial and I write copy. And so I can find and research ideas that are so obscure and so, how do I say, like lateral. And I'm able to put those into editorial, and that translates really easily into sales copy. And one of the things that I do for the business that I write editorial for is I will write things, especially my main articles, in such a way that you can just copy paste the first half of it, like before you get to the actual recommendation, into a sales letter, and bingo bango, it's ready to sell. That's one of the reasons why I'm paid so highly for my editorial. I make the copywriter's job a lot easier. Now, wonder if it's just one copywriter or if they're backed behind a team. Now, here's the thing. A lot of editorial teams in the financial newsletter space, they do have a research pool, but that research pool is usually there for like the more numbery kinds of things. Again, I am separate from a lot of copywriters and gurus because I actually do my own analysis and research and know how to do it. And a lot of copywriters just don't. But also a lot of copywriters don't have the time to based on these criteria in the guru's idea, can you, researcher, give me 30 examples of this stock experiencing big gains as a result of this thing? As a copywriter, you often don't want to be the one doing that kind of work because you want to be writing the copy. And so the researcher's role is to give you that. But in terms of like actually finding ideas or finding things in like the federal, Federal Register, or like in an obscure book from 1905, nobody's going to do that work for you. That's the work that you have to do. So the researchers are there.
It does get faster though. Like the more often you do it, the faster it gets. It's like, you build a knowledge base of, first of all, like financial knowledge, which is just going to make it easier to parse all these different documents, right? It just makes it easier to go through them. And then as you do, you write more reports, you write more issues, you write more editorial. It just gets a lot easier finding that stuff, I think. Like the first time I did some stuff for you, Sean, I was just spending so much time. Like, I was like, where the heck do I find all these things? Like what reports do I need to read? Like, and then I just discovered, oh, hey, while most annual reports put this stuff like, between page 5 and 8, like in their report, just open 10 different annual reports of 10 different companies and boom, you've got 10, portfolio updates. And I was like, hey, it can get faster.
Yeah. A lot of the speed that comes with writing editorial comes with knowing where stuff is as opposed to knowing stuff, if that makes sense. So that relates to this related question that did not have to get paid for. Wouldn't you need a high level of expertise qualifications in the subject to write editorials? And that depends. Like, for example, Jack Ford, who wrote a tech-based newsletter, English major. George Gilder, he worked for Nixon, and then he wrote his famous Gilder Technology Report in the 90s. And, he wasn't an expert, but like gained expertise through the research. I was an English major. I have 2 master's degrees. One is in literature, the other is in creative writing. But I started out as a math major, and I grew up around stockbrokers. So when I entered this industry, I was already somewhat conversant with financial terminology and concepts. And so it wasn't a big leap for me to learn the math. And I've said this on stream before, that it is a lot harder for somebody with financial experience, like experience in the financial industry or on Wall Street, to learn how to write copy and editorial than it is for an English major to learn like financial analysis. The reason for that is because a lot of financial analysis is pretty procedural, whereas actual writing is not. And so,
True.
like, give me an English major and I can teach them the math. Give me a finance major and teaching them to write is like pulling fucking teeth. It's awful. Goodness gracious. Great balls of fire. All right. Another related questions. Yes, exactly. Lateral thought. That's how you beat ChatGPT. And I for this stream, I was actually tempted to show a difference between like the kind of portfolio update I would write versus one that, and I've tried to get ChatGPT to write these for me. And the reason why I want to pay you, patrons of the Copy That Show, hold on, I have the thing. There's the thing. The reason why I want to pay patrons instead of using ChatGPT is because I can't get, no matter how I prompt it, and I use very specific and very good prompts, I can't get good editorial for my needs from ChatGPT or any AI writer. It's not possible. And so the reason why I want to pay you, person watching this, is because I presume and hope, I pray, that you can do better. So, another question. What is the turnaround time for a page like that? What page? For the actual sales letter or for the newsletter? And now we have to wait 3 minutes for the sound to travel like a long
Maybe
distance.
a good answer to that might be like, hey, how long did it take you to write that one column that you used to do in a newsletter?
So it depends. It depends on the idea. It depends on the amount of research. But there was a point where I was able to turn around that 1,000-word column that I was getting paid $2,500 for in about 4 hours. And that was like draft, multiple revisions, editing, proofing, and then final revision before publication. So
basically 1 day of focused work, basically 25.
And usually,
that's impressive.
usually I would actually do that at around I would wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning because nobody else was in the office and nobody else was awake. And so I could just have that focused, undisturbed time to crank these out. Now, when there's more research involved and when the idea is more complicated, then it would take a little bit longer. Then, we're talking about 6 to 10 hours of concentrated work for one of these newsletter columns.
What about for the entire newsletter? Maybe 40, 50 hours, something like that? Or?
Yeah, for a full newsletter issue of the type that you see here on your screen, you're talking about, in aggregate, research, writing, revision for multiple columns, for multiple things. You're talking, and then editing, and then formatting. Yeah, what we call production in the business. That's about a 20 to 40 hour thing.
Okay.
So it takes me between 20 and 40 hours to produce a full newsletter issue, which again tells you why I would like to offload some of the more tedious portfolio updating work. Now,
can you answer one more? What about a promotion? I've heard many say that it takes them about 150 hours to write one full-fledged promotion. What's your rate, or what's your stat?
A lot of people love to make fun of me because there was one promotion, my best-selling promotion of all time, that took me 8 months to write. And I've actually written this and shared this with people on the patreon.com/thecopy that show, the full story of why it took me that long. Again, the research was just so much more complicated because the idea was actually pretty new and novel. And like, you'll see like this idea like spread across, but it was the first sales letter that really had the idea to say, hedge fund and Wall Street algorithms tend to mess up. Here's how to profit from that. Everybody else was like, use this algorithm to make money. And Evaldo Albuquerque and we went the opposite direction. No, AI sucks. It sucks nuts. And so let's profit from that. And so we had James Altucher actually, like, he coded up an AI and an algorithm, and then we had to like test it and make it more robust because he was just busy. He just didn't have time to like do full like Monte Carlo like types of analysis for the back testing and stuff like that. I know how to do that stuff, but I actually had to learn like Python. I coded up a genetic algorithm, and by coded I mean I stole it from Stack Overflow, as a true coder would. And so like that, and then we also beta tested it. We like did a limited release to like lifetime buyers, and then we got testimonials from that. So the whole process out the door was 8 months. The fastest I ever wrote a 40-page sales letter was in 3 days, 3 basically sleepless days. And
Wow.
that, I was even talking to the publisher, Doug Hill, at the time. He's a good dude. If you ever have a chance to work for Doug, he's a sweetheart, and I like him a lot. And basically, I was talking to him, and I basically said, this took me like 3 days, but I also, like, I had all the research done because I had written the editorial for it, for us, like, basically the fulfillment. So all the research was done. I just had to put it into the right structure. So
That's a powerful synergy, by the way, just being able to write your own editorial and then being able to say to yourself, all right, I'm going to actually write a sales letter about this piece. I can understand why that's a golden combination.
You wrote that? Are you talking about the 7-day stock market glitch? Yeah, robots are making this mistake. Yeah. I'm the one who wrote that original promo. So Evaldo and we brainstormed the idea for a little bit, and he sort of like locked in the idea. And then I went away and then read basically a bunch of FINRA reports that basically said, yeah, Wall Street algorithms are actually terrible. Like this is bad. The people that are programming this stuff don't actually like. And I found this. It never made it into the sales letter, but it made it into some of the editorial. But straight up, there was a hedge fund, and they lost like billions of dollars because they got like this PhD, like coder, mathematician, programmer to like develop this like foolproof like algorithmic trading system. It was using bid-ask arbitrage, if that means anything to anybody. And this dude, like, accidentally, like, didn't understand and had as one of his parameters a sell instead of a buy. And so all of a sudden, this hedge fund was losing millions of dollars per minute, and they didn't understand why. So they had to like literally just rip the algorithm like out of the circuit board and like shut everything down. It was crazy. And like that, those mistakes happen all the time. They were called flash crashes. And so I wrote a sales letter that was about that. What is this bald guy talking about?
Finance class.
This is a finance class. And so basically, these are all stories about promotions, editorial, how ideas formulated, things like that, as they relate to financial copy and the synergy it has with editorial. Anywho, so just to move on from there, I wanted to show you guys an example of what I am hoping to hire somebody for, what I'm offering $300 to write. And that is this. This is actual editorial from another newsletter called The Palm Beach Letter, written by a guy named Grant Wasildik. I never learned how to pronounce his last name. But anyway, get through, and again, standard, it's the big idea, it's the due diligence, it's the recommendation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you get towards the end, they have portfolio updates, the actual portfolio that they are monitoring for this newsletter and updating people on it. Now, here's a good example of a portfolio update. And Palm Beach Letter was great. They are really good at editorial at Palm Beach Letter, or at least they were. I don't know if they are anymore. We recommended Goodyear Tire and Rubber Co. in our January 2014 issue. Goodyear dominates the automobile tire market. Now, notice those two sentences. Really short, really simple, really easy to understand. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so people can see this. And what you should notice there is that we have when this was recommended, we have the context, we have what it is, and we have why it was added to the portfolio in the first place in 2 sentences. Again, if you want to learn how to be succinct as a copywriter and communicate a lot of information well, doing well in editorial is going to help you do that. Because this is the kind of compression that good copy needs to have as well.
One interesting I noticed with this bit instantly is that there are some technical details in there right after those first 2 sentences. You know, you've got a forward P of 5.8 and the company, well, I guess that is the technicality. Even if you don't understand what's going on, the subtext in this copy still is, if you've purchased Goodyear, you're safe and you made a good decision, right?
Exactly. The company just reinstituted a dividend, and the demand for replacement tires is about to spike. We are up 9% since we recommended Goodyear. We closed yesterday at this. That's just below our buy up to price of this, and it's still in the buy range. When I read that, let's go over everything that we know based on this little blurb of text. Which, by the way, this is not true anymore. This newsletter is also many years old. We know what, we know why, we know like how it's valued and like what the investment thesis is, and we also know what to do. And how many words would you say this is?
Oh, that's like 35 to 40 words or something.
It's not a lot. Again, writing and communicating a great deal, but at terrible compression. That's good copy. So,
but not complexion. That's an important thing to note there as well, is that it is concise and it is compressed, but it does not necessarily confuse or overwhelm. I mean, the only thing you could argue might not be understood by the reader is the PE ratio, but other than that, it basically reassures and it gives the why this is a good investment. And it yeah, like you said, it shows what to do. Exactly. Like, it's not complicated, but it is very it's full with information. That's a great skill to have.
Absolutely. Let's look at another one, and you'll see again. Once you look at a few of these, you'll notice the pattern. Westlake Chemical Corp. WLK produces chemicals we use daily for tires, plastic wrap, water pipes, window and door frames, etc. Westlake is another new member of our Dividend Elite from the March 2014 issue. Notice how, for the sake of keeping a reader interested, the structure of these 2 sentences are flipped in the next recommendation. Again, by having that variety of structure, you are able to retain engagement and attention more. There you go. So, but again, the information presented in these first 2 sentences are identical, just structured differently and using different words, like water pipes. There you go.
Yeah, just some concrete examples to give you an idea of what's going on.
Exactly. And here in these sentences, we have the why. Why did we recommend this? Why is it still a good asset? Now, keep in mind that some of this is true from when it was first recommended, and some of it is new now, the now being at the time this was written. And that is the...
That's also why you need these, right? Because the market just keeps changing. So how often do you usually do these? Every quarter, or is it every month?
So for the newsletter that I'm hoping to offload some work for, I'm doing it every quarter. And that newsletter, it has a pretty stable... I mean, here, I'll show you guys. DIY Wealth. This is where I actually am sort of... I don't want to call myself a financial guru because I'm not, but I am... I do talk about wealth and things like that. And it's this product right here. The copy here is not great because it's long order form copy, so it's not a promotion. So what is the Legacy Portfolio Quarterly? This is that newsletter. Who's this right for? Who's this wrong for? It's basically a stable portfolio of about 22 stocks, boomer blue chip style dividend paying stocks that one can invest in and basically hold forever. And this is what we were charging for it. I'm actually probably this week or next week going to switch over all the fulfillment on the website over to Patreon, just because I think that there's more frictionless transition from YouTube to Patreon there. But basically, yeah, like this is the copy, the evergreen, like stays there, stays the same forever, non-promotional copy for this product. And this product has 22 stocks. And so we need to give quarterly updates on those 22 stocks. One of the stocks that I asked people to write for was Disney, DIS. And so that is what I was going for here. I wanted something like this, but for Disney. And I want to assess different samples from patreon.com/thecopythatshow supporters. And I would be willing to pay $300 for somebody to write the 22 portfolio updates, like what you see here, for that particular product. That was the whole inception and premise that led up to this stream. Hopefully, if you've watched to this point, you've learned other things as well, like how this all works, what this all looks like, how financial copy even is and does, and what it does. I'm hoping that this has been edifying for you. This, and I wanted to show you guys this, is an example of one that I wrote for Disney in a previous issue. And specifically, this is the most recent one, the December 2022 issue of the Legacy Quarterly Report, where, and I guess I'm showing off one of the other stocks in there as well. So I guess you don't have to buy now, which is a joke because you're paying for the research, not for the stocks. Hey. I'm kidding. People pay for the stocks. Well, who am I kidding? So let's actually look into this. The biggest news to hit Disney in recent months is the ouster of the company's CEO, Bob Chapek, and the return of the company's previous CEO, Bob Iger. Disney's board dramatically reinstated Iger as CEO last month amid broader dissatisfaction with Chapek's leadership. Again, first two sentences, we know what's going on with Disney. One of the biggest changes happening as a result of the switch up is that the company's entry into the digital streaming and subscription market, Disney Plus, you don't need to mention that here, will be increasing prices and launching a $7.99 ad-supported tier. This is being done because despite the fact that Disney Plus quickly became one of the biggest streaming services in the world, it still hasn't turned a profit for Disney. Again, you're getting information about what the company is going to do, as well as context for why they're doing it. It's all about providing that context. While Disney is still seeing significant revenue growth, the renewed focus on profitability should ultimately prove to be a positive catalyst for the stock. And there we have, like we had in the other examples, a clear takeaway of what to do. If you haven't added Disney to your portfolio, you probably should. And this was before the big news recently of why one should buy Disney now. Buy high, sell low. Let's see. We have some comments. To be taught even a top financial copywriter in the world for free was unheard of even a few years ago. This stuff is gold. Much appreciated. I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. We literally couldn't do these without an audience. So I appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you. This is bad financial advice. So, and I don't want to just give you one example of my copy and like leave you like out in the wilderness. I want to show you again how templated and how structured these things are. So I went way back and found a different one. Again, this is September. This is way back. And you can see these are all words that I wrote. I didn't hire anybody to write all this stuff. I actually, I made the graphs, I made the charts. I do all this stuff. Like, this is all me. And so, yeah, I do a lot of work. You know, all this analysis, all this stuff is the work that I do. And so, as you can tell, I want to kick off some of this work so I can focus on writing copy, writing other kinds of stuff that is going to grow my business. Now let's zoom in on Disney. Okay. Disney. On August 5th, Disney announced that it now has 60 million Disney Plus subscribers, 8 months after its initial launch on November 12th. This is the what? Disney originally estimated it would get between 60 and 90 million subscribers by 2024. It achieved this goal 4 years early. With those first 3 sentences, we immediately know what's going on with the company, what's good, what's happening, like why this is amazing. For reference, and this is called a dimensionalization, it took Netflix almost 8 years to reach 60 million subscribers. What is the implied argument there, Luke?
Well, it means that Disney did it a lot faster and potentially a lot better than Netflix. So it's a better investment than Netflix would be.
Really quick, Lethal Terror, is your offer open only to patrons? Yes, and the deadline was 2 hours ago. So the offer to actually write one of these for me and get paid for it is now closed. But I will be going over what people have submitted and giving feedback, giving topics based on what I'm trying to show here. Now, one of the things to keep in mind with this newsletter, and I didn't say this in my initial prompt, I didn't say this originally, but one of the things with newsletters like this is that the reason why a lot of them are so long, the reason why we structure and word things this way and sort of resell what we've already sold is because the market is saturated. People always have not only a choice of other newsletters to read and buy, but also other stocks that they can buy. And one of the sort of notions that people have in their head is, why would I waste my time, saving and spending money like on boomer stocks like Disney when I could be buying high growth stocks like Netflix? So what's subtly going on here in just 3 lines of copy is a clear argument of why you would want to buy Disney and not Netflix. I'm selling against alternatives, and you didn't even realize it.
Mm.
And so that is what's going on rhetorically under the hood. And that's, again, a good example of what you're trying to do in these portfolio updates. And notice, again, how terribly compressed it is. Just a few sentences, and it gives a major update. It gives information that makes the opportunity seem compelling, and it compares it with something that somebody else can do but shouldn't, based on the overarching investment thesis of this newsletter, which is buy and hold good stocks forever. So here, the enormous subscriber count bodes well for the company in terms of generating regular revenue, profits, and cash flows. You don't need to know what any of this means to know that makes Disney attractive. You don't actually need to know the financial terminology here to understand that Disney can help you. That's what's going on. So before I move on to the actual submissions that we got, I want to open up to questions about this particular topic. Again, anything that you want me to elaborate on, anything that you want me to clarify, anything you want me to go over before we press on and actually look at Patreon copy. Or I guess Patreon subscriber copy. Patron copy. Patreon subscriber copy. I am not articulating well today. I apologize.
I like that little comment here. Kind of how one of the Kardashian girls earned in 1 year, which took Maybelline 45 years to do the same in the same industry.
Yeah. Maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe it's a Kardashian. Yeah. No, I've never watched the Kardashians. I actually grew up in the same city where they now famously reside, but I moved out and I got super bougie. I grew up in Calabasas, but I grew up in Calabasas in the 90s when it was like orange orchards and like an abandoned tennis academy and a goat ranch of all things. Do you normally try to give a broad overview? I presume that you mean in the portfolio updates, and it depends. Like, for example, the Disney thing, like I don't really need in this copy to remind people that Disney is a mega media conglomerate. Like, who's going to read this on the planet and go, Disney? What's that?
What's that?
So it's all contextual. Whereas other
It's
of
like you
these.
got to be really in tune with like what your reader will know or not know, because like you could go into those details, but you would just miss the mark completely, and you would probably lose the reader even if you start talking about like, oh, Disney is a blah blah blah, it's a media company. Like last year they did this and that. Like no, like people just want to see, you know, people just want to get reassurance on the investment that they made. Like that's basically the most important message you need to convey.
Exactly.
It's
And
like,
that
did
ties
I
really
do a good job? You know? Go
yes.
ahead. Sorry.
And that ties in really well with this next question. Wouldn't it be unethical to not disclose any bad news while writing for the stock? And the answer is yes. And so if there is relevant bad news, you should disclose that. But
Mhm.
also, it's incumbent upon the editor and the copywriter, especially if the investment thesis is still to buy it, to spin that bad news into something beneficial. So, a good piece of bad news, this is not in the two examples that I've shown. I had to disclose to people that Disney cut the dividend. And then I had to
Mhm.
reassure and reaffirm like why we should still hold in the portfolio. And that was at a time when Disney, I think, dropped to like 80 or 90. I think Disney is hovering
Mhm.
around 100 to 110 right now. So it was good that I reaffirmed the buy. And so, yes, you should disclose bad news, but if that bad news does not materially change the investment thesis, you can take or
Yeah, like
leave
you
it.
should like if you're the copywriter, you should speak with the with the editor and like, hey, like, is this like investment still sound? Like, is this still good? And if the guru is like, well, yeah, it's fine because the bad news doesn't actually affect, or I don't predict the bad news to affect, the future of the stock. Well, then you just disclose it in your portfolio update, and then you mention why the investment is still good.
Yeah. Let's see. Does writing anything financial like editorials, the research, the sheer length of the sales letters, this get easier with time because it looks intimidating? It is intimidating. Financial, I would say,
That's
is
hard.
probably it's the hardest to crack.
I mean, it
Um,
took me like 2 years of copywriting before I felt at least comfortable writing financial copy. So
yeah, I mean,
that's my experience.
just for context, like I made my first stock trade when I was 11 years old. I grew up wandering the halls of a brokerage firm. I was already not only a professor of rhetoric for 7 years, but also a paid writer, like not only freelance writer, but also like I was ghostwriting books. I was, doing articles. I was a paid content and copywriter before I ever got into financial copywriting. And I also had knowledge, and I also had a background in mathematics. And so like that was enough to get me into the bottom rung of the business.
Mhm.
And it was only after I got into that bottom rung was I able to start crawling my way up because it is intimidating. It took me years to
Mhm.
get my first sales letter out the door.
It's
And
also an emotional battle, like just dealing with like the sheer difficulty of competing in financial copywriting. I think at least.
yeah. Um so really quick, how to research. We will for hold on. I have the thing. I love this thing. For the patreon.com/slash the copy that show, I will eventually one day do a advanced masterclass on research techniques and
Mhm.
methodologies. I will also probably make a free, like a little mini one, like a basics of research. But we could probably do, Luke, like the video that was released today, where we
Mhm.
revealed the 4 ways to get clients in 2023. We could probably do a video like that where we each share a tip about research, probably in the next
Mhm.
time we record one of those. So let's see. But yeah, eventually we have so many plans and so many ideas that we want to add to the Patreon. We will
Mhm.
eventually do that. Beyond unethical, it seems like the bad news if ignores would create an elephant in the room. Like, why aren't you mentioning this? Which is bad luck. That is absolutely true. If there's
Yeah,
like
agreed.
truly bad news about a stock, we gotta mention it. Like, for example, Intel is another stock in this portfolio. I'm basically giving away a paid product for free. Um, I'm still bullish on Intel, but I also acknowledge that when it comes to value investing, when it comes to this type of investing, like sometimes stocks go through bad years. Uh,
Mhm.
for context, another one of the stocks in this portfolio is Chevron. we recommended Chevron in like 2012, and you all are too young to remember this, but by 2015, Chevron tanked. I mean, not like oil tanker, but like actually the stock price tanked. And that's because like oil prices plummeted. So Chevron became effectively unprofitable. And it was like that for like 5 years. And I had to go through like discussion after discussion. Should we sell Chevron? Should we sell Chevron? And it was like 60, 70 at the time. I can't remember. Maybe it was like 100. And I had to keep reaffirming in these newsletters and also, for copy, like, yeah, we should buy Chevron because it's cheap right now.
Should even
And
buy more.
I've made a ton of money on Chevron. And also the people that listened to me made a ton of money, but I had to defend Chevron on three separate occasions over the course of 5 years. And then what happened in 2022? Chevron jumped like 50% in a few months. So anybody who listened to me made money. But that's also the sticky, problematic thing with financial newsletters is people get frustrated, especially like with this style of investing. People get bored and people get frustrated, especially if their stocks are not like flying to the moon, especially while like other things like Bitcoin or, Cathie Wood funds are flying to the moon. And ultimately, this style of investing is safer and tends to pay off better in the long run. But people, especially buyers of financial newsletters, tend to be very presently minded. Like if you don't see gains in a few months, you start to get a little worried when really this is a multi-decade strategy. So Intel is a similar sort of story right now. Like when I, coach whoever is going to write these, they're going to write a portfolio update for Intel. And guess what? Intel's got a lot of bad news right now. Like I'm still bullish on it, but it's a multi-year bullishness. And so all of that will need to be disclosed in the portfolio update. Runaway train. A John Carlton tip. In any industry, you often get more insights from the comments section than you do from the article itself. Very true. That's a good research tip. I will not attend that masterclass. Fine by me. Great tip. Thank you. Anywho, so let's get into actually critiquing people's copy, the people who submitted for this.
We got 3, right?
We have 5. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got several. So let's start with this one. And let's zoom in so people can actually see it. Let's zoom in even more. What is the enhance? Okay, so this is a portfolio update for Disney. Headline, general update. One of the most recent issues was that the company killed its dividend. Right off the bat, where are we going awry?
I mean, like the first thing is just a formatting for me, just to have Disney there rather than general update, because there are people going to be skimming the portfolio updates, so they would want to see which update this is from the bat, right? Or am I getting that wrong?
More like, if I'm reading this as a reader, what company are we talking about?
That also.
Again, I mentioned, you got to state very early on, the first 2 sentences, the what. Wait, the copywriter does the research? I thought the publisher has analysts on board who provides the research. No, like 80 to 90% of the research is you. And if you can't do the research, you don't get to be a good copywriter. The analysts are there to like build systems and like build trading strategies and assess them and use the Bloomberg terminal for you, because only they get to have access to it. You don't. I actually knew how to use a Bloomberg terminal, but there was only one in the entire like 200 person building, and only the analyst was allowed to use it. And like I wheeled and dealed and smooth talked my way into being able to use the Bloomberg terminal myself. That was fun. If any of you are fans of Kyle Milligan, there was an interview that he did with me where we talked about the ethics of copywriting. And that room, that was like where they put all the sort of junior and newer copywriters. And in the back of that room where that was filmed was the Bloomberg terminal. So that's what that was. So if any
Yeah,
of you,
so general reference here in this paragraph, right? Like that's the issue.
yeah,
Just
like
making a reference that's not explicitly stated.
exactly, this person wrote for me based on what they know I have in my head. They didn't write for with a reader in mind. I can tell that from the first sentence. But Bob Iger, who's Bob Iger, just announced plans to bring it back by late 2023. Why? Well, he decided to cut the company's costs amounting to 5.5 billion. I can already tell from the first few sentences that this is not going to work. This is not even revisable. This doesn't work. And the reason why is because, three reasons. It clearly wasn't written with the reader in mind. Who's eventually going to see this? Who is eventually this going to be for? I don't even think that was an English sentence. It doesn't matter. And so they wrote it sort of divorced from that context, not really fully understanding. Another thing too is there's so much information being scattered very quickly that they omit necessary details that one would need to understand what is even being said here. Who is Bob Iger, for example? There's a famous quote by the composer Gustav Mahler, and I think it applies really well to creative writing and to copywriting. And Gustav Mahler said, "When you think you are boring the audience, slow down, don't speed up." This is all written very quickly, but really, like, the copy doesn't work and feels sort of boring because it's going too quickly, not because it's going too slow. So that's something to keep in mind. So, and then the third reason why is it doesn't give a clear, direct, or implied reason to buy the stock right now. And he restructured the company's division into 3 areas. He intends to make the company more stable and profitable. I guess that can be kind of construed as an implied benefit or reason to buy Disney right now, but it's still not popping through as clear as some of the other examples that I shared earlier in this stream. Would you agree?
I agree. I think that sentence before the last one, and you restructured the company or the company's division into 3 areas. That's a statement. That's cool. But then, there's no proof or why or sentence that hints at why this is relevant or why this would matter to me as the reader. It then says he intends to make the company more stable and profitable, and I could be like, well, any company right? Like any CEO tends to make their company more stable and profitable, right? Like that's a generality. And I'm kind of the first reaction I get, well, that's great that he wants to do that, but how? Like that does not tell me the strategy or does not give me the confidence or reassurance that this might be a good investment. It just tells me, okay, what's going on? What is this about? And I don't want to be asking, what is this about after reading a portfolio update? Like you, Sean, the biggest advice I would give here is to slow down. Like the most important part is to slow down. Because the first few sentences, I immediately just think to myself, what is this about? It's not clear to me what I'm reading here. It's not clear to me who's talking, who it is about, who's Bob Iger, one of the recent issues. Wait, do you mean one of my recent newspaper or newsletter issues, or do you mean one of the issues with Disney? There are just too many different directions and different interpretations that you could have reading this copy. And as your job as the copywriter, it's to make sure that there is only one way to interpret what you read, or at least the meaning can only be interpreted in one way. How people then interpret that meaning is obviously a different thing, but you need to be extremely clear in how you convey the message that you're trying to convey so that people without a doubt understand what you're trying to say.
Whether you are writing a portfolio update for a newsletter, a article, a listicle for BuzzFeed, a article that's an advertorial for Bone Broth, or a sales letter or a sales page, it always needs to start with what's in it for me. What is this about? Because if I don't know what something is about, I don't know why it would apply to me. There's no intrigue there. And so you have to really drill down very early on in anything that you write that's copy or content related into how it will benefit the reader. That is an important lesson here. So, here is another portfolio update for this assignment. Really quick before I move on, Any other questions? So W Knows has been asking several questions about what the hell? That's like getting a CFA on the cheap, and copywriters aren't CFAs. At least supplement companies have experts on board to formulate the product. Couple of things about this. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, CFAs don't tend not to. Sorry, CFAs tend not to write very good copy. And so what you're researching for an idea often will be outside the purview of copy. Like, I'll give you an example. And this is a sales letter idea that I had relatively recently. And if you want to try to like write this faster than me and pitch it to somebody, be my guest. The sales letter idea sort of all cohered for me really quickly. The battle for Thacker Pass. How a single strip of land northwest of Reno has the ability to transform the global political and economic facade, or whatever situation forever. Now, Thacker Pass is a little patch of contested land that a company, the ticker is LAC, I think it's Lithium Americas Corporation. They want to mine there. There's basically very minimal lithium production in America, but they found a patch of lithium in Thacker Pass. And so for like a decade, Lithium Americas has been trying to mine there. They just got permission to do so. And so a really good sales letter would be about Thacker Pass, the opportunity there, what it represents, the contention, like how it has to deal with, the Defense Department recently came out and said that our lack of lithium, like supply chain ability, is a national defense issue. It's just a big multi-tangled issue. Now, here's the thing. All that information, how is a CFA going to get that information? A CFA can tell me whether or not a stock went up or down, or like they can do a dividend discount model or what have you. They're not going to be able to give me the information necessary to tell a good story about what has been going on at Thacker Pass. So I invite you, W Knows, how could a copywriter offload that research onto a CFA or an analyst? They can't. That is why financial copy is so dang difficult. Again, because you mentioned supplement companies, one of the best supplement sales letters I've ever read, the first 10 pages were all about how impressed Napoleon was by the Spanish armies when he invaded. Where, again, you say, a supplement company has experts on board to formulate the product. Where are they going to find the information about Napoleon being impressed by Spain? That's the kind of research that we're talking about here. You'll have a few hundred words later on when you talk about like the health benefits of olive oil extract, and that's what they can help you with. But that's like so far below and so far removed from the kind of research that you need to do to excel as a copywriter. So,
and also like Sean said, it's not so much about being the same as like an analyst or being the same as a CFA. It's more just about being able to interpret information like that and being able to do some basic calculations. But the copywriter really is getting, getting their paycheck because they're able to write about very intriguing ideas, and they're able to uncover by doing research those interesting ideas, because it's that pulls interest. It's that actually makes people think, wow, what is this about? How did you find this? I want to know more. This is totally different from anything I've seen before. And then people decide to purchase. That's an extremely valuable skill. And also, like Sean just said, you're not going to find that in an analyst or in a CFA or anything like that. So again, like it's not so much about being a CFA. It's more about being able to interpret things maybe as a CFA could, but you're not having the same responsibilities.
So what does a publisher actually do if they don't originate the idea? They publish things. The role of a publisher is
be the operator, right?
Yeah, to operate things, to manage things. And so sometimes
to supervise and
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so where do ideas come from? Ideas come from three places. They come from the publisher, usually in collaboration with the guru or the main analyst. Sometimes they come from the guru or the analyst, but rarely. And sometimes they come from the copywriter. The best ideas often come from a combination of all three brainstorming together. But oftentimes, very oftentimes, a copywriter will just come up with an idea and then go hunting for a publisher or guru. So,
and that's why that research masterclass Sean wants to have is super important.
and where is that going to be?
That's going to be on the patreon.com, and we don't know when.
No idea when. I make no promises. I'm a very busy boy. So the copywriter is the rainmaker then. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, like if people don't know if people don't know what's in a newsletter, if people don't know what's being published, they're not going to buy it. That's the copywriter's job. Anyway, so let's move on to this. So this is another portfolio update for Disney, written by one of our patreon.com/thecopythatshow subscribers. With a bull market coming, a certain mouse is ripe for the picking. Where does this go awry from sentence one?
This is trying to be funny or trying to be clever, which typically doesn't really work well.
It doesn't land for me. I will be honest. Like, you come looking for copywriting gurus to give you specific prescriptions and ideas about how to like make all the monies. But I will be honest with you in this moment in time that I'm not sure about something. I am not sure how well humor lands in this day and age. I suspect for this context, it doesn't do well because people who buy financial newsletters tend to be older. They tend to be more serious. They don't want the person writing about finance to be frivolous in their thinking or their writing. And I always go back to a Claude Hopkins quote. I believe this was in Scientific Advertising. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was in chapter 3. I could be wrong.
Wow.
The quote was, when we are writing copy, we are effectively writing about people's money. People take their money very seriously, and so we should do the same. And that is why we shouldn't incorporate humor into our copy. Now, I had a conversation with Jason Bagley, who was the executive creative director at Wieden & Kennedy. He came up with all those really funny Old Spice ads. He was mentored by the guy who came up with Just Do It for Nike. He's a heavy hitter. And he had a really good counter argument to that, which was, there is so much evidence now that humor does work in copy that I don't think that adage holds up anymore.
I think you just got to be really good, like really, really good. I feel like humor it's such a hard thing. I mean, there's a reason why comedians prepare all their shows and built their craft of being funny. And I think like if you want to start injecting humor into your copywriting, you probably want to be already at the advanced level. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I would personally agree. Humor is one of the riskiest things I think that you can do in copy. Disney's stock is down, ready for smart investors to increase their holdings. Not bad. In the last quarter of 2022, one thing I didn't mention in the last portfolio update is for these, one thing I asked for is for citations and evidence backing up every single claim that is made in these. There's a few reasons for that. One is because I want to be able to quickly see if what you're saying is true, as the person reviewing your copy. But also, two, where I'm publishing these, editorial is reviewed with the same sort of, how should I say, compliance restrictions as sales copy is. And so every single number, every single claim needs to be backed up. In the last quarter of 2022, Disney hovered between 110 and 85.78. Still a significant drop from 2021. Now, here's what I like that's going on here. It's giving the what? It's giving the context. I like it. The pandemic brought with it several hits to Disney's profits thanks to park closures and massive drops in travel. Not bad. Gives me context. And also, going back to what was said before about disclosing bad news, that makes sense. It makes sense to put this here in context.
Mm.
And this is why the stock is down. There you go. People, when they're looking for information about stocks or what stocks to buy, they want a reason why. Why is the stock up? Why is the stock down? Why is it a good buy? Why is it a sell? Etc. It goes back to that Cialdini. Stick a because clause on there, and it makes sense. Things may have looked bleak, but Disney is a long-lasting brand with strong, consistent footholds in the economy. I don't know what this means.
Yeah, same.
Between huge franchise successes and more Disney Plus subscribers than Netflix at the end of last year, Disney's earnings and profits are forecasted to keep rising through 2025. That's pretty good. And that's not all. Oh, love that. With the return of Bob Iger, popular former CEO, thank you for the context, comes the promise of those sweet, sweet dividends that will put money in your pocket even as your stock values grow. We know that short-term income matters almost as much as long-term investment growth. So just like with Disney, we've analyzed the rest of our portfolio plans to bring your portfolio the best of the best. That copy felt a little weak fish to me. Interesting thing about dividends, they did a study and they found that if you look at the total returns of the S&P 500 over the last, 90 years, or is it 100 years? Dividends actually accounted for 90% of your total returns.
Wow.
Dividends are not just short-term income for long-term growth. It's actually the opposite. And there are debates among financial nerds like me about the efficacy that, how tax efficient dividends are, yada, yada, yada. But the whole reason one starts a business is to make money. And the way that you get money out of business is to distribute that money. That's what a dividend is for. And so there's good stuff going on in here. I like the way that it gives context. I like the way that it couches the new news in the context of what has happened before. That's pretty good. There are a few things here that would make me not want to choose this. I don't know what some of this stuff means. Some of it's trying to be cutesy. I would avoid that for this particular context. And in general, I don't feel like I have a strong sense of why now? Why buy Disney now? If that makes sense.
I feel like there's quite a lot buried in here that you could potentially do something with, but on another note, I think that one of the mistakes you're making is that you're telling too much rather than demonstrating. I feel a lot of the information that's being or trying to be conveyed here is quite verbose. So using many words that aren't really adding so much to the meaning or aren't really amplifying the message so much. Whereas if you could and if we took those examples Sean showed before from those other issues in mind, then you would see that so much information is being conveyed, not in a complex or overly information overloaded way, but indirectly, almost by demonstration, almost by implication, and letting the reader form their own conclusions. If you could do something similar, if you could attempt to do something similar with what you've got simply by looking at it again and seeing if you could maybe emulate some of the stuff you saw early at the stream, I think you could make this a lot better. You probably improve a lot as a copy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That is something that I would recommend to all copywriters. Learn how to compress a lot of information into very, very short sentences. So if you want a quick tip on how to do this, avoid the verb is. How would you rewrite that without the verb is? You'd have to completely rewrite the sentence, and it would be stronger and more semantically dense, more impactful. Let's see.
Yeah, I would also say in that piece here, just sort of be the judge and weigh every word that you've written and sort of weigh and see what the value of each is. I think you can just be kind of ruthless here and edit a lot, take a lot of cut a lot out of it, because there's just a lot of words where you're just not really saying much. You could just get rid of it or read it better.
Yeah. Runaway Train has a good tip. I echo the Lake Clayton Makepeace tip. Avoid the word things in copy. It is a weak word. I would edit to the events look bleak, etc. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
good advice. Look for English. Written English is full of hollow words,
Hmm.
words that serve a grammatical function but no semantic function. What is semantic? Semantic is
Exactly.
meaning and like what it actually communicates, either textually or subtextually. A word like things, it's a
It's
hollow
just
word.
abstract.
Yeah. This, it's a hollow word. Is, is basically the grammatical equivalent of an equal sign. There's no there,
Mhm.
there. There, also a hollow word. So avoid hollow words in your copy as much as humanly possible.
One thing that always helps me is just to think in concrete nouns or concrete things and then think about like what those nouns do. So either those are people or those are, like either ideas or I guess non-animated stuff. Uh, and to use verbs to sort of like talk about the interaction of the different nouns that you've got in your sentences. Because sort of the base thing of writing is like every sentence is basically just a subject and a verb and maybe an object. When you're using something like things as your subject, things could mean anything, right? It's like things may have looked bleak. Like that can be interpreted in so many ways. It leaves me thinking, what are you trying to say as the author? Why don't you try and tighten that language and say maybe the market has looked bleak or Disney's performance has looked bleak, and just try to be more specific in the word usage that you actually put in your sentences or that you use for your sentences.
I would agree. So let's move on to this dude.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I hope this is helping people. I see the viewer count going up and down and up and down, and I hope that the information that we've given thus far has been helpful and insightful. Another excellent long-term position is the Walt Disney Company. Being an industry, so here's something that I like. So I don't really like the here's another portfolio update. Like, what if this one was the first? You don't know. Like,
Mm,
you don't know where this is going to end up. So, like, write in such a way that it would operate either in sequence or individually. Another thing that this person did that I really appreciate included the exchange that the ticker symbol
yeah,
is on. Good.
that's
That was
nice.
forward thinking. Probably referred back to this and used that as an example. And so when somebody gives you, hey, I want this thing to look like this, I provided this particular piece of editorial with the contest. I guess this is a contest. This person looked at that and said, oh, I need to emulate that. And so
Mm,
good on you for
yeah.
you have the right thinking there. So being and being an industry giant, Disney owns and co-owns more than 200 companies in the entertainment industry. Most prominent ones Most prominent ones being their theme parks and resorts, online streaming platforms such as Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Hulu, and filmmaking studios such as Marvel, Pixar, or Lucasfilm. In short, Disney has a diverse portfolio and many reliable revenue streams. I want to refer back to now. Here's the thing: if you were going to truly emulate this, one thing that I would caution you about is how many sentences does it take to, how
Mm,
should I say, reaffirm or describe what Goodyear tire does? One,
yeah.
two, three,
I
four,
remember that
five,
you
six.
you taught me that once, Sean. Like when you are emulating copy, also think about the length and the, like the amount of text that's being used on the page, like or in the paragraph.
Yeah. Oftentimes, when I'm analyzing or studying copy for myself to learn, I will literally count the words in a sentence, the words in a paragraph,
Mm.
the words in a section. How many words were devoted to a particular proving a particular idea. I'll literally count them. Um,
It's like an obsessive attention to detail, but that's how you get better.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't wish my brain on my worst enemy, but that's part of how I got good. Like, if I notice
Yeah.
that, okay, in these portfolio updates, you have this sentence here. This sentence recaps what this company does. If I look at, 10 examples, I'll find that there's a word count between 6 and 20 words on average. And so I'll say, okay, I need to do this at this time. And so I will try to condense that information into 6 to 20 words. And and I'll do that at a sentence level. And so most people don't do that. Most people don't think that way. But if you don't think
Yeah,
that
you
way,
gotta
this is what you end up
get
with.
you gotta do it to get good, I guess. So depends on your goals, I guess.
You could probably get good without being as obsessive as I am. Let's be real. So let's actually zoom in a little bit more. We can't zoom in more. Dang it, stupid Google Docs. Okay. Disney also has a 40-year-long consistent track record of paying out and increasing dividends with a payout ratio of 28%. Now, what's wrong with this? Just right off the bat,
I mean,
based on.
this is just a fact. What do you mean
No,
wrong in what context?
So here's the thing. We know from a previous update that Bob Iger plans to reinstate the dividend. What does that mean if he's going to reinstate the dividend?
All that means that there hasn't been a 40-year-long consistent track record, which means that the fact is not actually truthful. Yeah.
I would just call it not a fact.
Yeah. It's a theoretical fact.
It's an emotional. We all want Disney to pay a dividend. Where is this coming from?
Okay, so basically, yeah, the research was not accurate enough here.
Okay. So I'm trying to see. No, so no context was given to that. So from this article from 2022, let's see. And this again also is why I ask for citations. Dividend.
It says it there, right? The company suspended its semi-annual cash dividend in July 2020.
Yeah. So when this person was researching this, they paid attention to this, but they ignored this. Make sure to read. I mean, I get it. We're copywriters. We're not copy readers. But also, that context, that's important, especially if you're going to give news about Bob Iger reinstating the dividend. Now, here's another thing to keep in mind. Yeah, so this person did actually say, Bob Iger proposed to reinstate the dividend by late 2023. There's a big gap between this sentence and this sentence. Just
that sentence could be really great if it was just saying perhaps you've heard the bad news that CEO blah 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 cut the dividends, but prior to that, Disney had a 40-year-long track record of paying out and increasing dividends, and this period was only 2 years long, and they're getting back on track again. So if we can look at Disney's past, we can assume that it's gonna keep doing this for another 40 years, right? Or at least another good amount of time.
Yeah. Here's another thing that I would throw into the mix. Because I've covered Disney for many years, I'm aware of this stuff. And so if I were writing this particular portfolio update, what would I do? I would look at the fact that Disney used to pay a dividend, and it was basically the same dividend for a long time. It was only under CEO Bob Iger that the dividend started going up, and actually went from a semi-annual to quarterly, the standard fare when it comes to dividends. So we know that Bob Iger is all about them dividends and rewarding shareholders. That's good. Now, interesting is under Bob Chapek, the CEO that replaced Bob Iger after COVID, it's probably a good thing that they didn't pay a dividend. They needed to preserve cash. So again, bad news, you can spin it, into a positive pretty easily. Because they canceled the dividend, now they have the cash to actually sustain operations, yada, yada. Now, interesting fact is, now that you know that Bob Iger was the one that initially started upping the dividend, we know that Bob Iger is devoted to shareholders. And what has he done now? He has announced that devotion yet again and promised to resume dividends by the end of this year. So
one takeaway you can take from this as well is that you just need to be very curious about this. Like you need to ask yourself, okay, so we've had Bob before and we've had Chapek after, and there was a cut or there was a period where there were no dividends. Now, or like you might see like, oh, there's a period of no dividends. Why? Like it's not even so much like trying to spin or trying to like find a way to make that bad news good news, but to like have the desire to know why that happened, like try to figure out why that happened. Because if you're curious like that, you can actually discover and say, okay, well, they did this because of COVID and like all these things happened. You've got that fresh in your mind, and now you know that Bob's coming back, and you knew he did great beforehand. You know he helped with that consistent track record, so you can make the conclusion he is there for the shareholders. But the only way to come to that conclusion is like, or like the conclusion Sean was describing, is if you're curious. Because if you're not curious, you're not gonna like think down that particular direction. You're just gonna ignore it, right? Like it just takes a little bit of your own thought and your own effort to sort of go into that particular direction or rabbit hole. And the reward for doing that is that your copy gets better.
100% true. Now, one other criticism that I have of this. So, like, here's the thing. In a different context, this might be good copy. It isn't here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, copy is only as good as the context that it's in. But that takes me to this last paragraph. Disney closed yesterday at 102.08, still below our buy up to price of blah, blah, blah. If you haven't picked up Disney yet, now's a good time to take a position. Love the call to action. Good job. But however, does this make sense in context? Because
you don't know when the person reads this.
Exactly. Now, the examples that I gave have these, but you could probably infer from reading those that, yeah, that was
There's a
published.
problem. How do you mention this, right? Like basically the writing challenge here is like, how can you tell, or how can you talk about the current price, or how you can talk about the buyer price and still make a recommendation or have a CTA to, take a position and, make a purchase. And that's why it's so important to read like, existing financial copy, because you might see like back in November 2022, we recommended to buy Disney. I'm just saying something here. We had a buy price of this and this at the time of writing. Disney is at blah, 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 still below the buy price, meaning now is a great time to purchase, right? So you don't even have to think of everything yourself, right? Like reading lots of financial copy, reading lots of editorial, literally like you can reverse engineer and see how previous writers have, solved that writing problem, right? Like the problem of how do you mention price and how do you make a CTA that, includes that price.
Yeah. And there's another contextual element here too, which is sometimes portfolio updates, when they're published, the prices are updated that day so that they're true. Now, here's the thing. You run into trouble here. Like, in defense of the person who wrote this, I didn't give examples of other portfolio updates
Fair.
that I had written. So they didn't know what the buy up to price was. They didn't know that context. It just wasn't there. But also, you don't always need that context. Really, the goal here is, again, to reaffirm and reassure. Now, sometimes you have these temporally stuck things that shift in terms of their truth. And you have to be conscious of that as a copywriter. That sometimes you're going to publish something and this is going to get published tomorrow, in which case this would be true. But we already know that since this was submitted to me, I think this was submitted to me today, by the time that this would be published, this will no longer be true. The word that we have for that in copy is called evergreen. When you write these, you want them to be as evergreen as humanly possible. That's why I've been harping on providing context as much as possible, because you want this to be applicable, relevant, resonant with people, whether they read it now or a month from now. And oftentimes you have to be conscientious of that when you mention things like this, specific prices, price ranges, things like that.
Yeah.
So
Also, like you said, neither Sean or I or myself is angry that like you might not know this, but it's just like it's literally crafting copy. Writing financial copy, it just takes a lot of deliberate thought, and like you need to know these things. The only way you learn them is by either analyzing copy or being chiefed like this, like we're doing now. Getting your copy critiqued and having us say, "Hey, that's something you could pay attention to, right? Like you could pay attention to the evergreen nature of your copy. Now, you may ignore that if you want to, but if you're like, oh wait, okay, yeah, that is a point that I want to improve at, and if you do, you're going to make yourself more competitive. You're going to make yourself more attractive to, financial publishers, but even other publishers or other, companies that use sales copy, which is pretty much like every company out there, whether they know it or not. Um, so yeah, we're not trying to be mean here. We're just trying to give you pointers that you can take a look at, and advice that you can take to heart.
yeah, like I said, this is not bad copy in a different context. Important thing to keep in mind, and knowing that distinction, and also clarifying with your clients the distinction. Is this going to be a very timely piece of information? Like it needs to be true like today, but only needs to be true today? Like is it ephemera basically? Or is it going to be evergreen? Is it something that's going to
Mhm.
sit there and be relevant for a long time? That is something that you want to get clarity on ideally before you start writing. Now, something that nobody did, which I would like to encourage you all to do in the future, is when somebody gives you an assignment and I want you to ask questions. I want you to ask for examples. I want you to ask for
Mhm.
like, hey, is this going to be a one shot or is it going to be evergreen? Like, should what information should I include in this? What is the bio to price? Basically, you come up with a list of questions. You go back to your client or go back to the person who assigned you something, and you ask them. And
Mhm.
ideally, the client wants you to succeed because they make money if you succeed from them paying you money. So they're going to ideally give you the information that you need to succeed. I don't want you to feel like an annoying pest with your clients when you ask them like important questions that would allow you to write good copy. Of course, some clients are cagey and awful and smelly and
Well, it,
think,
it it also depends on the questions you ask, Sean. It's like first of all, like it's okay to be curious. Like we encourage you to be curious, but also like have the balance and think to yourself: Is this a question I can answer myself? Can I research this? Can I discover this on my own? Or is this a question that is more specific or outside of the bounds of like my ability to figure out? Right? Those questions you'd want to ask your client, and your client is actually going to appreciate you asking those questions because they're going to be like, I've got someone in front of me who actually did their homework, who actually thought about the project that I'm giving them, and who thought a little bit further. And that's just going to give a good impression, and they're going to be super happy to tell you that information because like Sean said, they want you to succeed. But if you just ask basic questions, they're probably going to be like, yeah, like you could have figured this out on your own. But if you ask like,
yeah,
hey, like I'm having a hard time making this pricing thing come through and communicated properly. Like, do you have any advice or do you have any examples that show how someone else has done this?
yeah. Really, yeah. There's hand-holdy questions that I find terribly annoying. The
Yeah,
kind of stuff where it's like 5 minutes of research and like,
yeah,
searching on Google will give you an answer to this. Those questions annoy me to no end. But contextual questions, like you couldn't possibly know what the original investment thesis for Disney is. And so
yeah,
earlier, Joe Bobo, Joe slash Luke, said there really is a mindset that you have to adopt with this. And one of the mindsets that you need to have when you're a copywriter, when you're a marketer, when you are writing and working for clients, you got to have balls.
yeah,
And I don't just mean testicles. I mean like you can have a good pair of lady balls too. And some guys have lady balls and some girls have guy balls, and you know what? Like it doesn't matter because as long as you have balls, you're winning in this game. And
mhm.
I'm not being phallocentric with this. To hell with the penis. Nobody needs those. But I want you to feel confident and encouraged from this point forward in your career as a freelancer to feel like you can ask for more information from your clients if you feel like it's necessary for what you're working on. So let's see. Let's go on to the next one. So Walt Disney Co.
How many more of these do we have?
1, 2, 3.
I might have to drop off soon. I gotta wake up very early tomorrow again. So
yeah, I totally understand. These should go quick. So Walt Disney Co. is a child-focused media conglomerate. The company owns 11 theme parks, film studios, streaming service, resort destinations, and owns valuable IP such as the ESPN, Pixar Studios, Lucas Ltd., and more. So this is running into the same issue that this one did. It's called, in creative writing or copy, we call it info dumping, where it's just like, you don't need to get all this information to understand the context or like why. And so and that also ties in with like showing rather than telling. Info dumping is mainly telling. You are talking at somebody. And so I would recommend avoiding it.
It's like your reader will, like your reader is going to excuse you for making mistakes like that, right? Like your reader is going to excuse you, but only once you've already hooked them in. Only when they're already interested in what you have to say. Only when when they're sold on you being a credible source and you saying stuff that actually interests them. It is hard to assume that at the start of a paragraph or the start of something that you're writing, the reader is going to be interested, which is why so many copywriters say that the first sentence is the most important one. Like, make sure your first sentence is going to be super strong and that it gives them reason to keep on reading.
Yeah. There's a reason why we call the first sentence of a piece of copy the stinger.
Yeah.
So the company operates, so in 2020, Disney CEO Bob Iger stopped dividend payments to investors in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, Bob Iger announced a new plan for late 2023 to bring back the suspended company dividend. Now, immediately, what do we know based on what I've just revealed to you about Disney and its dividend history? What's wrong with this paragraph?
Yeah, I mean, but we can't really use that as a critique point because that's contextual knowledge that they don't know.
No,
right?
I mean, no, this is something that anybody
anybody
with Wikipedia access. Yeah.
Right. Okay, fair. Yeah, it's just information. It's one thing I'll say though, it's good that you can
No, that's not what I was going to mention.
Okay.
This is false.
Yeah.
Factually false.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Iger is not the one who stopped the dividend payments.
Yeah. It was Chapek, right?
Yep. So again, this is all stuff that when it comes up in the research, this is important.
Yeah.
Evil Bob Chapek stopped the dividend. Hero man Bob Iger is resuming.
Yeah, it's another thing in copy is being able to interpret the information you read well, and having the curiosity to follow a train of thought until you figured out what the truth is, right, or the situation is, to the best of your accurate ability.
Mm-hmm. And so here we have another sentence. The reason for the reinstatement of the dividends was Bob Iger issuing a statement that COVID-19 restrictions are largely behind us. Now, what's going wrong with this sentence, in your opinion?
The reason for the reinstatement of the dividends was Bob Iger issuing a statement. I mean, I guess it's going to be about the truthfulness of this, whether or not this is truthful.
So this is truthful. This is from a statement. But if gun to your head, if you had to rewrite the sentence, how would you rewrite it?
I mean, I would try to make this more engaging. That's one of the things. I would say something like Bob said COVID-19 restrictions are largely behind us, and kick-started or whatever, use some interesting verb to note that this is happening again. I'm sorry. It's late. I'm tired.
I totally understand. I totally understand. The reason for the reinstatement, Bob Iger issuing a statement. So we got some unintentional repetition here. And the reason, like we already said, Bob Iger announced a new plan to bring back the suspended dividend. But so the important thing is the reason. You just say the reason being that, you know, what caused the dividend cut to begin with, COVID-19 restrictions, are largely behind us, comma, as Bob Iger said in a statement, or as Bob Iger said. So you could rework and retool that sentence to be way less wordy, way more succinct, way more compressed, and in doing so, it would become way more engaging. So I try not to spend too much time on line edits when I stream or talk about copy critiques, because ideas are more important than grammar or sentence structure. I'm sure I just triggered like 5 grammarians that are watching this. But when it comes to something this compressed, a portfolio update or a brief, you don't have a whole lot of real estate. Certainly not as much real estate as Disney owns. And so you have to write under that terrible compression, as I've been saying. Neutron star levels of density. So at the start of the last quarter, Diz stock price has continued a steady decline into December, but miraculously gained a higher share price over January and the first half of February. I just don't like that.
Doesn't give me a why. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like the modifier there to say miraculously. Like, doesn't really tell me much. Just fancy wording, but no explanation.
Yeah.
Which might just be like interpreted as like, hey, you're someone who's talking fancy, but you're not explaining anything. This sounds suspicious, right? Like I can see people interpret it that way.
Yeah, and also it goes back to what I was saying before, that Cialdini-esque, give people a reason why for something. The moment you use the term miraculously, you kind of remove the possibility of there being a why.
It just happened, sort of like, Sean. Yeah.
Miraculously. So, and just in general, this is another like wordy sentence, and also it doesn't really give me, the what to do next. So I would pass on this one as well. Okay, let's look at this guy. Let's zoom in. Loop, loop, loop. Walt Disney Co., love it, is another big name currently in the portfolio. Again,
just okay. Just like my first reaction is okay. It's not like I'm excited or no. It's just okay. That's the first thing I think.
Yeah, it's a functional sentence, but ultimately not really important for this. So we can cut that. We added Disney to the portfolio due to recent news that the management plans to bring back dividends in 2023. So I think this person is thinking incorrectly that
this is a new
we added, right, as opposed to something that has been in the portfolio.
And like, again, it's not your fault that you don't know this, but one thing, like one piece of advice we can give you is, if you don't know, ask, right? Like, or, research, but in this case, you couldn't research it because you would have had to know from Sean. You don't know if this was part of the portfolio or if it was a new addition. To ask would be the right choice here.
Now, to push back on that just a little bit, you can infer that you don't need to give a portfolio update on something
also true
that we just added.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, an update is always hints at a previous version. So
that's implied, like sort of baked into the assumptions there.
But then it's about more carefully reading the assignment or the instruction.
Exactly. Quick reminder.
So many things to think about. It's very hard to be copywriter.
Yeah, copy is hard, and anybody who tries to tell you differently is trying to sell you something. I mean, we're trying to sell you something. Hold on. I have the thing. Patreon.com/copy that show. We're trying to sell you something too, but hopefully it's something that is not caked in like 8 layers of BS.
Yeah. Like we can teach you how to write copy. It's just not going to be an easy process. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
At least I think it's worth it. So
It's been worth it for me. So there you go. So quick reminder, Bob Iger, Disney CEO, so far I like this, eliminated dividends
yeah, a faulty statement.
during the COVID-19 pandemic to conserve cash while the theme parks, resorts, and cruise ships were closed. Now, here's the thing. The reasoning was good, but this fact was incorrect.
Yeah. So more careful research would have fixed this. More,
right.
I feel with many of these, like they could improve their copy by slowing down their research and slowing down their writing.
Yeah. And again, like, keep in mind what we're talking about is each of these should take about 15 to 30 minutes, research, writing, revision. And what you end up with, it doesn't have to be very long. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sources of information. So I'm literally citing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sources to get the information I need to squeeze into 4 paragraphs. So that's something that you should keep in mind. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to terrible compression. You're condensing a lot of information into a small space. I want to take a moment, Luke, if you will indulge me. And I know that you're very sleepy. You're a very sleepy boy and you want to go to bed. I want to show you a few different places where you can get information. So the easiest place, Disney. So type in any stock or ticker, go Disney Investor Relations.
Exactly.
This will take you to the Investor Relations
what I've
page.
been using when I did these.
This is where they have literally things, updates, the news about the company. Here, February 8th, Disney Q1, fiscal year 2.
They usually have transcripts of those, even like of those, like they've got these like fireside chats that they always do. Like every company has those, and they just have transcripts. And like if you go into those transcripts, you just see what they're saying.
Yep.
I'm guessing this is one of those.
Look at this. The company has already prepared a slide deck for you to pull information from. It has information about the reorganization, why they're doing what they're doing, what they did, what they're targeting, how they're targeting it, like all the information. Like, you don't need to use any secondary sources. You can just use what the company has already made for you. It took me a few words and several clicks, and bingo bango, the company has already done all the hard research work for you. Look at this. This is a whole section on business results.
You just come back to that same argument, like, or that point that we made at the beginning, which is just you need to know where to find stuff. And you need to know how to parse and like sort of like hold in your mind the different facts and bits of information that you learn.
So Joe Bobo said there was 2 pages, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that this was already a little bit too long. So this is due to Netflix being the Disney is finding a job cut somewhere in 7,000. So again, it's providing information, not really weaving it all into the content. I guess resulting in 5 billion cost savings.
For this, it was basically just searching for the stock and trying to find their investor relations page, which is usually just a page where they put all their news, their events, and usually annual reports as well, like everything that investors need to know if they want to know information about the company that they invested in.
Yep. Any U.S. company is required by law to submit a quarterly earnings presentation, basically an update to the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. Now, here's the thing. You can look at the actual earnings report, and this gives you literally a numerical breakdown of everything. Their revenue, their profits, everything. This is typically a little bit nerdier. This is like if you're doing like real analysis, you want to use these earnings statements because they'll actually talk about like where the money is coming from, whether some of the money was like a one shot or if it was recurring revenue. They'll talk about things that they sold or things that they bought. The decrease in advertising revenue was due to lower average viewership rates. Look, that sentence, hold on, you can barely see this. Look, this, they even give you a reason why revenue decreased.
Like, and if in the news people are saying, oh my God, this company is decreasing or like it's not making so much money, blah blah blah, or like I don't know, they've done these things, and then you find the answer here. You can just say, well, despite the news, or despite the bad news, Disney has mentioned that these and these things happened, and our original thesis was this and that, and therefore Disney's still a great company, right? So the information's there. You just got to know where to find it.
Hmm. Absolutely true. Now, a friendlier way to get access to some of this information is with what are called investor presentations. And these
Yeah,
earnings presentations, not every company does these as fancy. And like for example, Berkshire
nice.
Hathaway, they don't need a fancy slide deck to encourage investors to buy Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway don't give a fuck. Disney is trying to this. Think of it like a marketer.
It's just a pitch. Yeah,
It's a pitch. It's a pitch deck. Disney is pitching investors on investing in Disney, or
yeah.
conversely, trying to pitch hedge fund managers and institutional fund managers and other ETF managers to buy Disney and add it to their holdings, especially active
Mm.
managers. That's what these are for. Now, here's the thing: if you were trying to write a compelling little bit of information about Disney, why wouldn't you pull from the things that they are actually actively putting together to try to sell you on Disney?
Mm.
So again,
This stuff would also apply when you're writing reports, by the way. If you are writing a report like 5 stocks that you have to know in the upcoming recession, or that you have to know about in the upcoming recession, and one of them is Disney, well, you better go in here to find information about Disney that you can put in your report.
yeah, exactly right. And just one other resource to show you. So sec.gov. If you are ever writing anything that requires some robust, backup in terms of financial information, hold on, where's the Edgar portal? I always forget where to find it. So SEC Edgar, EDGAR. Go here, and then literally look at this. Give me a company, Luke.
Well, let's do Pixar.
Pixar is owned by Disney.
Disney. No, shit, we already got Netflix. Give me Netflix.
NFLX. Look at this. Not only can you see every report that Netflix has filed, you can also see, look at this. The Bank of Montreal issued this about Netflix. You can also see, look at this. This
Oh,
ETF,
this is useful.
yeah, they just bought a ton of Netflix. And look at this. You can actually file by entry. I want to find a 13D or, yeah, give me a 13D.
Are these basically all the published reports by Netflix and other organizations about Netflix, or?
Everything that they have filed
Oh,
with
okay.
the SEC. Some of
Okay.
these were filed by like actual ETFs or trusts and mention
Okay.
Netflix. But let's actually look at Netflix. So this is an 8K. So this is a current report. And this tells you, well, some of it is just informational, but here we go.
Hmm.
There we go. And this tells you, look at this, going back to 2017, the growth, the revenue, all the numbers that you would need to know, the forecast. If you want to predict where a stock is going to go, well, a good place to look is where the company actually thinks it's going
Yeah.
to go. And they
And this
give that
like nitty
information
gritty
for free.
detail, like in this nitty gritty detail, you also find your promotion ideas, right? Like you can find like new angles and new interesting things by like going deep into the details like this. But you're gonna have to do it, you know.
That's not helpful. I want to find, there are a couple of reports that are, oh, look at this, insider trading reports. In your
Yeah.
copy or in your editorial, you can now find free information about how this person, who is this person? Masayiwa Strive. I don't know who this person is, but they changed their beneficial ownership. And what did they do?
Mm, and they had to
They,
follow it, so they had some relationship with them, right?
well, yeah. So if you buy above a certain amount of stock, or if you're an insider, you actually have to report that
Mhm.
to the SEC.
Yeah.
So you can actually see if insiders are buying or selling Netflix stock
Mhm.
or any stock.
I mean,
So
that's a headline right there. It's like, you know, like 35 insiders are buying more of this one media stock. Like, here's how you can get in too, right? It's like, boom, you've got intrigue. Boom, you've got something. But obviously, you're going to have to see if there are enough insiders to warrant that to be an actual trend or a discovery or an untold story that nobody tells, right?
Exactly. It looks like these are all like mostly like people executing warrants.
Fair.
So that's not really super helpful for what we're talking about. But let's see. Ann Mather. What did she do? She bought 277 shares at $226. Now, here's the thing. If you're capable of multiplication, you can find out exactly how much insiders are investing in their own company or selling in
Yeah.
their own company. That's important for editorial and for copy.
Yeah.
You can literally say things legally in your copy like, insiders have poured $8 billion
Yeah.
into this company. That's how confident they are in their own business.
Yeah.
So,
It's like it just drips with intrigue by being able to say something like that. But you can only find like you can only write a really good copy when you have those really, really good facts, right? That's why content and copy is so intertwined, because the the key thing that you got to do with good content is to focus on quality. Meanwhile, if you focus on really good quality, you can write really, really good copy. So it almost like makes it natural to come to the conclusion that you have to focus on quality and getting really good content to make your copy also really, really good. So
Here, give me another one. I want to try to find something with a 13D. Give me another company.
what was that one called? Becton Dickinson, I think.
Becton Dickinson, BDX. A company that is, everybody has used this company's products and they do not know it.
Yeah.
Like they make syringes and like
yeah.
other,
I mean, like it's like if you've ever been to a doctor or hospital, you have used the products that this company made. So if you believe that hospitals are going to be in business forever, you should probably invest in this company. Just me being able to say something like that is going to make you go like, well, what is this company? Well, it's BDX.
Let's see, equity. So these are not organized very well. Aha. Look at this. So BDX. So this institutional investment manager in particular at this time, so it looks like they sold this number of shares of Becton Dickinson. So you can see how much actual like whales, like really like super investors, rich people, hedge funds, anybody with like a outsized stake in a company, anybody who like is also regulated by the SEC, you can see what they are buying and selling and whether they are buying and selling the stock that you were covering.
You can even see with Congress. You can even like figure out if people in Congress are all buying up stocks in energy or something, right? Like you can figure that out. You can just go to the SEC filings and you can find that information and you can do something with that,
Yeah, so you can go to the SEC and you can dig a lot, or you can just go to unusualwhales.com/politics and you can see what our politicians are actually buying and selling. So, for example, let's see, Michael McCall, he has 3,494 recorded trades while he's been in Congress. I love America. So let's see.
Shut up.
Let's see. This
Gonna
dude,
get banned.
Burl, BURL. I don't know that ticker, so let's go Burl stock.
Which stock is that? Oh,
Burlington Stores. Formerly known as Burlington Coat Factory. So this dude has been, in November of 2022, he was buying Burlington Coat Factory. Now, the good question, and he spent somewhere between $15,000 and $100,000 on this stock. Love when our politicians, instead of making laws, are buying Burlington Coat Factory stock. Now, some of these things, like, again, you can concoct a number of narratives about this stuff. People do it for Nancy Pelosi all the time, aka the best trader of all time. But, like, for example, there were a number of news reports that came out in April and May of 2020 where there was a big meeting about how bad COVID was going to be. And what you saw was a number of Congress people immediately dumped millions of dollars worth of stock right before the crash. So you can find all of that information here. So that's unusual whales. And then I showed investor presentations. I showed the SEC Edgar, EDGAR, SEC Edgar. And you can just,
So,
all this information is for free. So you don't even need to look up news.
Part of being a financial copywriter, trying to become a junior, is learning how to use tools and how to do your research, learning how to interpret this type of data, right? You don't need to build, or you don't need to like analyze, or like, I don't know, you don't need to like compile this data yourself. You don't need to make the tables. You don't need to like do all the calculations, but you do need to know how to interpret it. You need to know how to find it and then come to certain conclusions. So
absolutely. So let's move on with this guy. So Disney's cash flow has plummeted since the start of that pandemic. Again, good, disclosing bad news, less than 100 million in 2022 compared to 3.6 billion in fiscal 2020. Good news is that the company is working on getting costs under control, targeting $5.5 billion in cost savings. Okay, again, you're communicating a lot in very little space. Like that. Good job. Similar trend happened during the 2008 crisis. Oh, we're getting historical context. While the stock price dropped by 57% during the market crash, it recovered to pre-crisis levels by 2010 and continued to grow. Here it feels like we're jumping to a new idea. The reinstated dividend will be modest at the beginning. It feels like, okay, we were talking about one thing, but then we immediately jumped topics to talk about another thing. But management believes it will increase over time as they push toward profitability in the streaming business. I mean, that's true. This would be good, but this feels like an unfinished thought.
Agreed. Which either means it needs to be developed more or it just needs to be cut out.
Yeah. I don't know how a copywriter is expected to know as much as real financial professionals who have MBAs and actual education. I literally read the same textbooks that they assign.
Yeah, like you could argue that a
CFAs
good
and
financial
MBAs.
copywriter, like you could argue that a good financial copywriter is literally on the same financial competence or proficiency as those people, and they might actually, like a good copywriter might actually earn more than those people even. So
sometimes I know a lot of financial copywriters who don't know like fuck all about financials or financial information. But they are able to tell a good story. They are able to synthesize ideas. They are able to find things that are appealing and interesting. And that's what matters. So
like there's a reason that people who are at the top are just obsessive about getting better. And if that means getting these skills, then, like in your case, Sean, like then that means getting those skills. Some people find their way to a lot of success without having them. But I guess if you just want to be as good as you can be, you find new ways to have an edge. And if that means getting, as much knowledge as an MBA would, then that's what it is, I think.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't do it, someone else will, right? Like if you don't do it, Sean, I might do it. Then it's like, it's just it's hard to sort of like say, well, I don't like it, and like that's valid. Like I might not like that either because it just makes it a very competitive space. But if someone's willing to do that, then that's kind of becomes the standard of the highest level of competition, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, here's an interesting thing. If you go and you become a CFA and you study for the 3 exams that you need to pass in order to become a CFA, I'm actually thinking about going for my Series 65, but that's neither here nor there, which would allow me to be legitimately a financial advisor. I'm actually already a financial advisor in Japan, of all things. But that's a story for another day. You can learn anything that an MBA learns. Now, what I would say that a copywriter has the benefit over an MBA or a CFA is that when you do that, as with any sort of school, you become indoctrinated into a certain kind of thinking. Now, the ideas that typically sell best in financial copy tend to be ideas on the fringes, extreme views, people that think that the financial paradigm and dogma is wrong. I'll give you a specific example of this. there is a concept in postmodern portfolio theory, which is the idea of like how one should construct portfolios and handle risk management for wealthy clients or for investors in general. And it's called smart beta because they use variations on a metric called beta, which is how volatile one thing is compared to another thing. And oftentimes that comparison is between a stock and the overall stock market. Something that has a beta greater than 1 is going to have more volatility than the S&P 500. So that's how
Mm.
beta works. Now, let me ask you this, Luke. And I know you're sleepy, but I think you'll be able to knock this one out of the park. Should I base my investment decisions on how wiggly something is compared to something else?
Well, if you want to use one factor or variable to make your decisions in life, I would say sure.
I'm going to
But I
go
don't
ahead and
think
say
that's the
the answer is
complete.
fuck no.
I'm not gonna like, yeah, like I'm gonna say like there's not a lot of information in that one particular factor there.
Yeah.
It's a small slice of the snapshot that you might want to have. So
Yeah, and there's other ways of assessing different kinds of beta. Like for example, the French FAMA model. There was the first three-factor model, then the four-factor model, then the five-factor model, and basically they were looking for individual characteristics of stocks assessed in some arbitrary, invented way to determine whether something would be a good investment or not. And now, here's the thing: as a financial copywriter, you don't need to actually know any of this stuff because you're not a quant. Like, you don't
mhm,
actually need to learn smart beta or portfolio construction. I learn and mind this stuff because I try to go to places where like there's no competition, where people are not thinking about these kinds of ideas. But I
mhm,
do think that there is a fundamental problem with how financial managers are teaching people and helping people with their wealth. Like, and that's a systemic thing because all these people are using models. Like Wall Street runs on models. Any asshole with an Excel spreadsheet can learn how to model anything.
mhm,
And so you don't need an MBA for that. You don't need a CFA for that. And so because Wall Street runs on models, I stop and I look at these models and I go, but wait, like, we're just going to base all of our decisions off of a model? Like, models were invented. Like, somebody came up with the
mhm,
model. And as a result, models are always going to have their sort of intrinsic issues with them.
mhm,
You don't need to know any of that as a financial copywriter. Like, not a single thing. Like, if a company announces amazing earnings, if a company has really cool things going for it, like, you don't need to be a CFA to look at the company
mhm,
Joby, Joby, and say, "Oh my god, this company invented the flying fucking car." Like, they ain't making any revenue, but they just invented a
mhm.
flying car. And what is the ticker? I think the company like just jumped like 25% today
Oh my
because
god.
they announced that the flying car is probably going to be done by 2025.
Wow.
So
I mean, like the point you were trying to make, like, was that good financial copywriting is just about having the willingness to be one contrarian to, or I guess part of being contrarian, not being afraid of being contrarian. So having, having the guts. And then also to be extremely curious to actually want to explore ideas that might be different or new compared to sort of the status quo, because it's in those weird ideas that you might find a breakthrough because they're different than everyone else's ideas. You don't need to have an MBA or hold the collective knowledge of finance to be able to find out new ideas. You can find new ideas simply by exploring more radical opinions, I guess, or more unconventional opinions.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
that's
also
why
really fun, I think. Like, it's interesting, right? To explore a new theory or a new idea and being like, wow, this is crazy, but what if they're right? Right. And then you figure out, what if they're right? Is there an argument to be made here? And maybe you see that they're right. And maybe that leads to a certain investment thesis, which might lead you to an amazing promotion that you can run.
yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's another thing too is that CFAs, your financial professionals, like they would look at Joby and be like, ugh,
Yeah.
pre-revenue company, high risk, but they invented the flying fucking car. Who cares?
Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
say in your copy is like, don't bet the farm on this. Don't bet any
Like
more than 1% of your portfolio. But like, if you're going for a moonshot, hey,
it's also like most people who learn sort of the things about finance and all that are going to be conservative in nature. Everything is past looking rather than forward looking, kind of. It's always looking at past trends. It's always looking at what happened before. It's just because it's trying to conserve and it's trying to make short term or trying to get a short term vision of the future by looking at the past. Inherently, when you're forward facing, you're always going to be less accurate. But by being forward facing, you also have the ability to get to really great ideas, which is what copy is about, getting great ideas. So someone who is very entrenched in the regular or the standard ideas that MBA or a financial advisor or something like that would probably lean more towards being financially conservative rather than to be more open-minded and explore ideas that go completely against all the beliefs and all the convictions that they have right now. So like Sean said before, it's really hard to teach someone who is an actual financial advisor or something like that to write copy, because they'll feel like they have to go against all the principles and all the things that they've ever learned to explore an idea, which to them just sounds like complete horse crap, right? While that idea could actually be a breakthrough. So yeah, it's hard.
yeah, absolutely. Financial copy, it hard. So I'm going to say, in terms of this portfolio update, this one's revisable. This
Agreed.
one is revisable. This one's revisable. This one needs a little bit more revision than others, and I want to hire somebody who's going to make me do less work. Let's see. This one's revisable as well. Let's look at the last example that we have. Okay, we got a shorty. I like it already. So Walt Disney Co. had its first earnings call of the year, which is also its first since Bob Iger has returned as CEO. Okay, we know exactly what. Okay, we are very happy with how things are shaping up after Iger's return. Love it, with major positive signs on display. Lacking a little specificity there, but still so far pretty good. Not the least of which is the likely return of Disney's long-standing dividend payout by the end of 2023. Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. The payouts removal was seen as an indicator that Disney may have overextended itself with acquisitions. Maybe. They're citing a source there. Let's actually look at that. Barron's Disney stock price dividend. Okay, they actually did the research on this, so I'm going to believe it for now. The promise of its return shows that these acquisitions have found their place in the company. Love it. Combine this with stronger than expected revenue, as well as sustained growth at its theme parks, and Disney looks like one to keep around. I love it.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, the only thing really missing from this is, what are those positive signs?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of get into that here, but like, even just like a taste here would probably be better. Trying to think. The only other detail I would give had its first earnings call of the year on, and I would give it a specific date. Again, this has strong bones. It's just missing specificity.
Yeah.
But it's already very close. Man.
This is like it's functional, but it's also good, and it seems to be truthful. At least it doesn't seem to go against what we discovered earlier. So that's a good one.
It gives the what. It gives the what. And positivity. I don't. So okay, this is an English thing, and this is a nitpick. And again, like I'm only nitpicking this because it's good. Like, I feel obligated as a teacher of copy and writing to have something to say about everything. So don't take this personally. This is good, but that is going to give me permission to nitpick. Not the least of which is a mouthful. That is a gummy sentence construction. There's a logical reason for that. English negation is logically very hard to parse. So what
Mhm.
semantically is not the least of which is doing.
This means
So it
basically is
says
kind of what it's saying.
exactly. And so this is one of those examples of like, do you are you going to write the policeman strolled to the automobile, or are you going to write the cop walked to the car? You obviously
This
are
is one
always
of
going.
those like a good first sentence, but like in revision or in editing, you should like pick this up and be like, hey, I did a thing here which could be simplified. I also think this sentence, like for example, with major positive signs and display, I think that might actually be better just cut away and the sentence underneath. So not the least of which that one would probably be better to be
Boom.
below the next paragraph. I think then you would have a pretty good like if you put that one underneath, like sort of like if you talk about Disney's longstanding dividend payout after you say the promise of its return show that these acquisitions have found their place in the company, I think it would be even stronger, right? So it's like these acquisitions are like we're thinking that these acquisitions are at the right spot, which further means or which further indicates that Disney is going to or is likely to come back with a strong, long-lasting dividend, right? Like as it
Mhm.
has been. Just thinking about this on a functional level and like where to put
Yeah.
the things in a logical order, not so much how I'd write it, but just sort of like how I'd structure the copy there.
Yeah. If you subscribe to youtube.com/copy that, we are eventually going to release, probably in the next few weeks, a beginner level masterclass for free to everyone on editing and self-editing your own copy and critiquing copy as well. One of the things that we're going to talk about is the difference between value edits, function edits, and line edits. Value edits are
Mhm.
like, is the idea good? Function edits are like, does this thing go here or should it go further down? Line edits are like, the sentence structure is gummy. Um, and so we're going to have a masterclass going deeper into that everybody's going to be able to access for free if they subscribe. Um, Lindsay and I were supposed to record that earlier this week, but she is very sick right now. So I'm really hoping that she gets better.
Yeah.
But everything that I have right now are sort of like nitpicky line edits and like a few function edits. But like
Yeah.
this is
This is
close to
good.
publishable.
Yeah. Good job, Evan.
Yeah, very good job. I think this might be the one.
You found your next junior, Sean?
Not maybe. I'm not going to go that far. But Evan, would you like a $300 writing project?
Honestly, like I've been seeing Evan's work in a couple of the critiques that we've done, and I think he's been doing a great job from what I've seen so far. I don't know how long you've been copywriting or how much work you've put into learning, but I've noticed it at least. So great job.
Yeah. No, excellent work. Seriously, Evan, really good job. Like this is exactly what I'm looking for, and like with the exception of a few nitpicks and like a few revisions here and there, which you could probably make yourself. Like this is exactly what I'm looking for. So seriously, well done. And just like that, a junior copywriter, got hired for a $300 gig.
Wow. It
Done.
literally happens, Sean. It just happens. Like, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So, Evan, I will DM you with more information and also much more laurels, more praise, more congratulations. But basically, I'll give you past newsletters. I'll give you past information. I'll give you the full portfolio so that you can see like what you actually have to write about. And yeah, but otherwise, let's get started. Let's get working. Let's make some money. And then, if you knock that out of the park, then let's talk about doing more work together in the future. But other than that, guys, thank you everybody who participated in this. Thank you everyone who shot their shot. Like a lot of the copy was good. Like
Mhm.
some of it hopefully like can be improved upon, and hopefully everybody who submitted learned something. And hopefully everybody who didn't submit also learned something. I know for a fact, and this is something from an internal CT discussion, we are talking about actually for patrons doing more of these kinds of things, like actually soliciting and like presenting job offers for like, articles, other things. Like, I think Copy That is intending to hire somebody to help us actually write some of our copy, just to take, again, more work off of our plates. So if you are not a member of patreon.com/the Copy That Show, I would highly recommend it, because not only will you get access to, like, it was a pitch all along for Copy That's Patreon.
So we just spent 3 hours talking about financial copy just to make the pitch.
Just so we can pitch the Patreon. So whenever I stream, I get a little like anxious, nervous, and so like my pits are just like raging right now. I'm just like sweating into my "What Would Batman Do" t-shirt and pitching the Patreon and talking financial. This is ridiculous.
Is this what nightmares are?
Copy That nights.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so power move. Look at them pits. Yeah, the Patreon. We not only have all of our master classes, and we're going to continue to publish our beginner level master classes to Patreon for free, obviously with a subscription to the Patreon. We have our books and other things like that, but we're also going to start making more of these kinds of jobs available to people. So hopefully that's a good opportunity, especially for like newbie and like newer copywriters that are trying to like find their footing and like write stuff, get paid to write stuff that they can put into their portfolio for future jobs.
Yeah, and get critiqued, also like just like putting like a proposal out there and putting the work, like proposing your skills and showing a sample to us, getting the critique is going to make you better. So even if you didn't make it, like obviously like it sucks that you didn't make it, but like I hope you've learned something and you have a new idea of how to improve.
Yeah. And when were these submitted? I don't see them in the Discord critique. They were not in Discord critiques. They were in the Patreon exclusive chat channel, which is only accessible to Patreon subscribers. And so I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in, for watching. If anybody is actually still watching, all 16 people, I really appreciated doing this. I really enjoyed talking with you, Luke, and I hope that that first half that was about how copy segues into editorial, how these offers are actually fulfilled. I hope that was illuminating for you, because a lot of people don't get to see what's behind the paywall of these things.
Yeah.
So hopefully that was helpful.
It's hard to see what kind of business financial publishing actually is when all you see are financial promos, when all you see are newsletter promos. If you never actually see the newsletters or the reports, it's just a mystery, Yep,
absolutely. I think that on a scale from 1 to stream would qualify as a stream.
I think so. Stream, yeah.
Yeah, and Evan, the winner of this contest, says the first half was golden. Information I haven't seen presented really anywhere. Yeah, I don't really see a whole lot of copywriters actually talking about the business, the mechanical side of this business. It's all here are 10 things that you can do to improve your copy today. Here are 15 things, red flags to watch out for clients or things like that. Only Copy That is going to give a 3-hour stream breaking down exactly how the financial copywriting business works.
And that's what makes us different. That's our USP.
Yeah, our USP that's attractive to 16 people total. Again, I just want to thank people. I'm going to wrap things up here because it's getting late and I'm hungry. And Luke,
it's midnight here. It's midnight here. I usually wake up at 6, so it's going to be a tough one tomorrow. But well,
all right.
Well, we did it.
All y'all, stay tuned for more Copy That in the future. We have videos coming out every Tuesday and Thursday now. So yeah, enjoy those.
Yeah, we're also Sean, do you want to do a little teaser on what we're doing every Sunday, what we're preparing for, or shall we keep that under the radar still?
So I still need to edit the first one, but basically we've started doing some PPC paid per click ad campaigns for Copy That and for our content. And one of the things that we started doing, Luke and I, is we started recording just a little 30-minute check-in of how are our Google ads doing? How do we set up on Bing? How do we get a Reddit ad out there?
How do you do PPC?
And how do you write for it? And it's there that you are going to see me use ChatGPT the most, because I don't actually want to write that copy. That's stupid. I don't want to pay
You
anybody to do
traitor,
it.
Sean.
Yeah,
You're using AIs to write copy? How
exactly.
dare you?
Exactly. Yeah, PPC. Like, who cares? Like, ChatGPT can make 10,000 of them. I don't care. And so, yeah, if you want to watch that and like learn how to do media buying at a novice level, novice to intermediate level, which is where I'm at, then yes, that is the place to do it. So,
Yeah.
uh,
All right. Well, that was
Luke,
a stream.
that was a stream. Go get some sleep and sleep well.
Yeah, I will. All right, guys. Thank y'all for being here. And I would say until next week, right?
Yeah, next week, and then we have big stuff planned for next week because one of our campaigns is ending. But yeah, guys, no matter what, I hope you enjoy and learn from what we do, and I hope you go and use what you learn to go make a ton of money. Like, not just a ton of money, but an actual metric fuck ton of money. I want you to make it, and good luck with that. Take care.